Appreciate you guys joining in. Appreciate you guys listening. We are back for another space. Retweet the space, reshare the space, let everybody know we're live. Let's try and get as many people in here as possible. We'll go through the news in a second. Let me just change the title to more current news. Okay, so I'm gonna be retweeting everyone's tweets right now. Uh, Let me do that. And in the meantime, guys, if you can quote tweet the space, anyone who retweets the space, we will quote tweet their retweet. So if you can do that for me, that would be awesome. Okay, so Ashgan, Hope, Bilal, Carl. A legend. Carl goes, time to monitor the situation. I may have to cancel my evening plans. Love it. Albert, Madeline, Ted, only Casper, Rex, and Doc. Let me retweet everyone. And guys, yeah, if you can retweet the space and reshare it, that would be awesome. Anyone who, as I mentioned, quote tweets it, we will retweet your quote tweets. Let me quickly get you up to date with the news today, and then we'll get right into the information and the content. So we had a statement from Trump earlier on. It was last night. It was towards the end of the night. Tonight, at my direction, brave American forces and the armed forces of Nigeria flawlessly executed a meticulously planned and very complex mission to eliminate the most active terrorist in the world from the battlefield. Abu Bilal al-Manuki, second in command of ISIS globally, thought he could hide in Africa, but little did he know that we had sources who kept us informed on what he was doing. He will no longer terrorize the people of Africa or help plan operations to target Americans. With his removal, ISIS's global operation is greatly diminished. Thank you to the government of Nigeria for your partnership on this operation. God bless America, President Donald J. Trump. Iranian TV aired segments teaching the public how to handle a firearm and ended the segment firing at a UAE flag. That's hilarious. Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, had the following to say. He said, I'm still waiting for the right to show solidarity with Lamine Yamal, who has been criticized by Netanyahu's government for waving the Palestinian flag. All our support to him and the Palestinian people, and all of our rejection of the human rights violations. Great points by Pedro Sanchez. Let's see what else we got. Just pin this. Iranian foreign minister says the UAE blocked a joint statement by BRICS members criticizing Israel and the Israeli aggression in the Middle East. He said, quote, the final statement of the BRICS ministerial meeting was blocked, or part of it was blocked by a member state which had its own special relationship with Israel, and this is very unfortunate. We have no difficulty with that certain country. We have only hit American military bases and installations which are unfortunately on their soil. The only reason they blocked the final statement was their support for Israel and the American aggression against Iran. Hegseth heads to welcome 4,500 sailors from the USS Gerald Ford after 11 months deployment. Oops, I'm pressing nothing here. CENTCOM says a US Army helicopter observes commercial ships while flying over regional waters near the Strait of Hormuz during the US enforcement of the maritime blockade against Iran. As of May 16th, 78 commercial ships have been redirected and 4 have been disabled to ensure compliance. Hundreds of thousands march for Palestine in London. Police arrest pro-Palestinian protests actors cosplaying as the Grim Reaper. That was in London as well. Tommy Robinson had a march today. The pro-Palestinians had a march today. From my understanding, the pro-Palestinian march was much louder than Tommy Robinson march, which was a Zionist march. Okay. The US is preparing for a second attack on Iran in coming days. This is according to the Israeli media. And then Galibaf made the following statement. He said, the world stands at the cusp of a new order. As President Xi said, the transformation unseen in a century is accelerating across the globe, and emphasizing that the Iranian nation's 70-day resistance has accelerated this transformation. The future belongs to the global south. We also had a major explosion in Israel. This was a major explosion in Beit Shemesh, west of Jerusalem. The claim is that they detonated the explosions themselves. But Israelis always lie, so we don't know if it was accidental or not, but there was a major explosion in Beit Shemesh. Iran announced it will reopen its stock market on Tuesday for the first time since the war began. Trump put out a post on Truth Social saying it was the calm before the storm. I guess he's making it look like they're going to escalate the situation either in the Strait of Hormuz or in a more escalatory war. I know many people on our panel think that that's not going to happen, and I can see why they're making that argument, even though, you know, my position, I do think that there is going to be an escalation. I think there's going to be a major escalation coming. But I just want to welcome, guys, retweet the space. Anyone who quote tweets the space, we will retweet the quote tweets. I just want to welcome Doc. Doc, hope you're doing well. How are you?
I'm great. It's a beautiful Saturday here in Los Angeles, California.
So low of you, Doc. Why do I feel so low, bro? I'm here in the back in the UK in the pouring rain. It's freezing, gloomy, and you're telling me you're chilling in the sunshine of the Los Angeles.
Yeah. Watching the PGA Golf Championship tournament. A lot of international players. So, I'm still staying connected to the international community as I am here in this space. And, today is another day when war hasn't started or escalated. So it's in that respect, in terms of the space and its content, it's a good day. I mean, what's fascinating me right now in terms of the news, and you haven't referenced it, but it's not really related to the Iran war directly, but sort of the ongoing coverage of the takeaways of Trump's visit to China from sources that I trust but haven't confirmed. And I think video that I saw Trump saying he's not really concerned about defending Taiwan, in effect saying it's not practical. That China has told the U.S. military that they will no longer ship rare earth minerals. I guess would be to the Department of Defense or defense contractors working, as agents of the Defense Department or Department of War now, as we call it. So, how that dynamic affects the war and the prospect of future escalation, I think, is an interesting dynamic, in part because I thought we hadn't had an escalation over the last 2 weeks, as many had predicted that we would, because Trump, and I think you mentioned this as well, that Trump was sort of holding off pending a trip to China. He didn't want to upset the apple cart, as the trip to China was more important. And Trump demonstrated that sense of importance when he brought, a gaggle of oligarchs, including Trump and the head of BlackRock, et cetera, trying to impress upon China the value of a continuing relationship with America because of our economic, I don't know, our economic engine. And it seems to me that Trump just got the back of the hand uh, from Z and China, and it's really reflecting, the continuing decline of the Americas. So I like all that because I think Trump needs to be set back. The economics of this is continue to get worse for America and Americans, and as he's had several recent statements, we're confronted with the continuing and growing economic damage being done to Americans because of the war and the increase in oil and gas prices. He's repeatedly said that he really doesn't care, which is just a 180 from the America First president that we thought we elected, those of us who were Trump supporters in 2024. So glad to see him be put in this place. Glad to see America put in this place relative to China. I think China, has acted in their own self-interest clearly. We've been contending with China since Trump's first administration, and he really directly took them on in a economic proxy war when one of his first acts as president, the second term, he in effect kicked China out of Panama, and then out of its influence or the ability to influence countries in South America, Central and South America. So I see this what China is doing in support of Iran, and I'll end with this. And China has announced that they're supporting Iran. I've seen recent comments, takeaways from the China trip by Trump, that's actually increased and been given more voice to in terms of China's assurances that Iran can count on them in any escalation. So I think things are calming down. I don't really see. I think the prospect of boots on the ground or an effort to really affect regime change, to go in there and put a government in that's favorable to America and Israel. I think that's impossible, and the military situation, continues to confirm that America's inability to prevent Iran from closing the straits. I don't think I think it's impossible given the status quo of both Iran, its geography, and its military, and the ability of Israel and America to project power against Iran. So it's a good day, better day.
Yeah, and what's your thoughts on like the strait being closed? It's harming the average citizen of the world. It's harming Americans. Prices are going up. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's I went to the store. I can't get out of the store without spending $100 on just basic groceries. Everything prices just continue to increase, and there's no end to the prospect of that increasing cost of food, particularly because that's the thing you got to have first, right? And you got to have a home or a roof over your head, and so on and so forth. But you need to eat, and it's becoming increasingly more expensive. Gas here in California it's the highest it is anywhere in America, and it's approaching $7 and $8 a gallon, and that won't translate for those countries and persons who price out their petrol by the liter, but it's easily twice as expensive here in California as it is in other places in America, and everyone's prices are increasing. Everything that moves in commerce is affected negatively by an increase in oil and gas. Not to mention manufacturing and production of raw materials into manufactured goods. So and prices typically don't go down. So once they go up now and they spike up here, what's being sacrificed is really the larger ability to enjoy life. You get to spend more money in food, insurance, what have you. Uh, you spend less money on a vacation or to buy something nice for someone in your family or to invest in something. And life just gets a little bit harder. And it directly contradicts what Trump promised. Um, we continue to see MAGA supporters and liberals even suggest that the fact that America is self-sufficient in oil and gas is put us meaning the citizens, in good stead. But so easily missed, and why it's so deceptive a narrative being pushed by Trump and others is the fact that we have a cheaper source of oil and gas doesn't mean that Americans are profiting, or the oil and gas companies are profiting directly. And when anyone in our country buys oil or gas, they don't buy it at the American price, they buy it at the market price. Or they steal it from Venezuela, which Trump is recently been bragging about. Oh, we're getting all this oil from Venezuela. It is, as an American, I'll say that's straight theft. The oil and gas in Venezuela should belong to Venezuelans. And we should be supervising a democratic election for their country instead of just kidnapping the corrupt leader allegedly because of his corruption, but then leaving his second in command and the entire infrastructure of Maduro's government in place. They're simply collecting all the value out of it, including reportedly gold that somehow has gone missing from Fort Knox. So they're taking the gold, they're taking the oil. It's an economic rape of the country under the guise of enforcement of what we call here the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine goes back to President Monroe's, I think our second or third president. Can't remember. In any case, basically said international interests cannot establish themselves in Central or South America or any of the Americas. And Trump sort of used that doctrine in its rebirth, if you will, to justify to Americans going into Panama, in effect taking back over the Panama Canal, sold to Panama by Jimmy Carter back in the 70s. But then through China's Belt and Roads Initiative, China had taken effective control and were charging prices to American shipping that was out of line with historic norms. So that was sort of supported and made sense. But Trump has extended that process in the use of military force in the Americas to effectively rape and pillage Venezuela, robbing Venezuelans of the benefits of their country's natural resources. So what Trump is doing and continues to do, it continues to hurt Americans. It doesn't matter if they're Republicans or Democrats, liberals or conservatives. Everybody's getting harmed right now by this president. And again, I think the most likely explanation for his change in behavior is, I believe he's being blackmailed by the Epstein files and international intelligence agencies.
Appreciate you as always, Doc. Do you want to welcome Joe onto the stage and Abundant? Joe, how you doing? How's things?
Doing well.
What's your thoughts? What's going down?
So after last night, I went to listen to your interview with Richard Medhurst, right? Because when it comes to BRICS, I think he's the only person I know that has studied the BRICS movement since 2012 more than I have, right? And he made a comment on your show about this being them wanting to move the corridor to the west. Okay. So since listening to that space right after you ended your space, I've done almost nothing but look at the data. Okay. And that swap's already happening. Right. Um, US is now the number one LNG exporter. Uh, we are the largest producers of oil. The largest reserve of oil is also in the Western Hemisphere. Then you have Canada. Um, Although 51% of the world's oil reserves are in the Middle East, and only 33% is in the West, our production capacity is much higher or production potential, sorry, or production potential is much higher than it is for them. Um, this does exactly, remember when I kept saying this is either to protect the petrodollar or to bring in stable coins? Well, if you move the corridor to the west, you do both, right? Middle East never control, no longer controls the dollar, right? Which it kind of does, and that's why we need very good relationships with them, and that's why we use Israel as like a forwarding base of operation in that area. Um, it's now controlled by Houston, and if it's controlled by Houston and everything needs to trade in the dollar, and you have no neutral currency because now the U.S. controls the commodity traded in a dollar and it controls the dollar, you're going to need a neutral currency, and that neutral currency would be stables. Latin America would almost all be operating as stables, and that's not even something new. Argentina already is like one, I think the third highest that uses stable coins in their economy. Venezuela's number two. Brazil's like number six. Like it's already happening in Latin America with the stable coins, right? This would just accelerate it. So I think this winds up doing both. It ushers in stable coins and it protects the petrodollar. And you no longer need the Middle East, which is extremely costly for Americans, and now you control the energy corridor. And what you want to do is you don't want to attack Iran. You want it. You want a slow simmer. You want to control the conflict. You don't want to leave, but you don't want to escalate either. Escalating would be worse for America because then you get embroiled in a war, which is what you don't want. You want a controlled degradation of the Middle East. So, like Richard said, when they attacked the oil field in Iran, they know exactly what Iran's going to do. Iran said it, tit for tat, right? So you attack our gas field in Iran, we're going to attack your gas field in Qatar. There goes 20% of the world's LNG. America becomes number one LNG provider in the world overnight. Um, and they're going to keep on doing this type of thing, right? And they're going to degrade it slowly so that America, the Western corridor, does become the energy corridor, and everything is laid out, and it's been being laid out since 2008. When you look at it, you look at the moves that Obama did, it goes back further than what even Richard said. You look at the moves that Obama did with moving more towards the Asian corridor than to the Middle East. This has been playing out for a while. The stable coins in Latin America, another piece that you needed before you did this, that was done before Trump. Everything's in place to just move everything to move over. But they'll need to keep this going for like 2 years, while the average American is going to suffer greatly. But they need this for like 2 years in order to cement that the West becomes the energy corridor, and um, they degrade the Middle East enough in order to make sure that happens. It's pretty crazy when I started looking at it, Suleiman.
So you agree a lot with this thesis. I just want to welcome Simon onto the show as well. But you agree with a lot with this thesis.
Yeah, it shared a lot of the thesis I had. The only thing I didn't see, my blind spot, was that they could. And as soon as he said it, I'm like, oh shit, America is the largest producer of oil and Venezuela is the largest reserve. Of course they can move the corridor over. Right? As soon as he said it, I thought of Venezuela right away and what that meant and how we can produce more than anyone.
But what about the so like there was a couple of things on his thesis that I wasn't too confident about, which is first of all, American production capability seems like from everyone I've been speaking to is like it's gone past the peak and now it's on the retraction. And the second question was about and then his argument for that was, well, they're just going to continue stealing it and pirating it off people. And then the second question I had about what his thesis was is, if you look at the amount of oil that's been stolen, let's say on the shores, it's not that much. Like, obviously, David, he claims it was zero. I'm not sure if it's zero, but like, it's not a huge amount.
No, it's not. But this is all temporary, right? Like I just said, you need it to simmer, right? You need some oil to get through, then you need oil to stop, then you need oil to get through. Maybe another LNG plant gets bombed or something else gets hit in Iran to strike something else. Like it's a managed, slow demolition of some of the resources in the Middle East. They don't want the Middle East gone in production. They want it reduced so that the West becomes the number one. And there, America forever will be able to protect the petrodollar. And the rest of the world will use stable coins in order to transact because they'll need a neutral currency. And if they need a neutral currency, that means they're buying American bonds. So in the reality, you're saving both, which I thought they were saving one or the other. But with this strategy, you save both.
So I just want to
Speaking of
welcome.
American bonds,
Going to
Yeah, go
restart.
for it.
ahead.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Just a
Then I
quick
want to
point.
bring Sam in. Go ahead.
I think something that factors in here a little bit is the new Fed chair. He's definitely going to lower rates. That's exactly what he's been put in there for, installed. And the US funds its wars by borrowing money. So it's going to be cheaper to borrow. And so Trump's going to be able to not face as much pushback, I think, or bad publicity on it. That's all I want to say.
Cool. Just want to bring Sam into the conversation. Sam, and I hope you're doing well. How are you?
Hey guys, yeah. I watched the interview with Richard as well. I think he furthers the conversation in the right direction. Slight disagreements in terms of the execution and what the impacts are. But I think he's spot on to say that this is a multi-decade operation that involves the most powerful forces of the world and the economic hitmen behind like big oil. And I completely agree with him on that one. Where I disagree is that I think it's not just US, um, using its hostility on the rest of the world, and people are resisting against that. I think world leaders have split the world up, and there's way more Chinese and Russian and OPEC cooperation in this than complete hostility. I do believe that big LNG and big oil have decided to split the world up into parts, and they're doing that through the control of energy flows and ports. And it's less hostile, more of an agreement. And Venezuela was like obvious, because China has been building up their reserves for decades in anticipation of this, and they really picked up. One explanation would be they were just doing it based upon intelligence, but they both in Syria and Venezuela, I think it was obvious that world leaders coordinated to allow such things happen, both on the Russian side, the Chinese side, the Iranian side, the Gulf side, and the American side. And prior to Venezuela, China was moving assets and preparing for exactly what happened. And then immediately after that, there were deals that were being done, where new deals are being signed with Saudi Aramco in Texas, and the Russian and Iranian preparation for what happened in Venezuela was pretty clear to anyone that was following it prior to it happening. So to me, it is American dollar domination of the Western Hemisphere or the Northern Hemisphere. And I think Joe was right around stablecoin penetration in Central and South America. But I think the Middle Eastern side is, reshaping the Middle East to West Asia, and China will be the dominant force in normalizing that relationship between Iran and the Gulf. And we can see the areas that Russia will be, dominating, and that ties into the I think, coordinated continuation of the Russia-Ukraine side. And so I think all of it has been split up. And I think that's why we're starting to see Nigeria come back on tap as well, and the Cuba side, because really Africa is the final. It's not clear who's going to dominate. Is it going to be, Egypt is obviously in the GCC sphere, but Nigeria and South Africa still need to be resolved, because South Africa is still the only region that's still Western colonized, even though it had like the ending of the apartheid system. The power structure still remained. And so we're going to see a bit of a pickup of like Western proxies like ISIS and Boko Haram and all that type of stuff. But to me, if you look at the map right now, it's very clear that like the largest powers in the world and world leaders seem to be cooperating on the changes of energy corridor, rather than America exerting dominance and the world's going to go into World War III in order to fight back against it, or anything like that. That's how I see it anyway. But I think the conversation is right, and those parts are like what we should be debating. What do you think, Joe?
Hey, Sam. Look, um, uh, I have a hard time believing they're all cooperating, because a lot of people lose here. That's all. Like, I do think China is helping Iran. Why would they be helping Iran and at the same time selling Iran off, where it doesn't really benefit them? Like, how does this benefit China? You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
they're not selling Iran off. They have relationships with both the Gulf countries and Iran, and they're going to be the dominant force in West in that region. And so you need a transition to get the US to redefine the relationship that made the previous empire and return it to this new empire. And if you end up with Iran, Saudi, being significant nodes in the petro yuan, petro dollar relationship, then you can imagine how much negotiation would be needed, and how would you manage such a transition. Well, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz would be pretty much the perfect way of doing it.
yeah, yeah. Look, I agree that China will become the dominant player in the Middle East, and honestly, for a lot of people on this stage, um, will be happy to hear that if this is true, Israel loses a lot of its power, because it, why does America need Israel then? It really doesn't.
Exactly. And that's why I think it is saying, all right, we'll let Israel drain its capacity.
Yeah.
We'll privatize a lot of Israel. We'll let Iran have it at it. And then Iran needs to agree to, okay, resistance is over. So allow Iraq to go into distress, which it is. Iraq's the big loser at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then allow Hezbollah and Israel to go at it and deplete it. And then we'll do regime change in Israel in the next year or so after this, and that reshapes the entire region.
Yeah, I think 2 years is basically what it's showing me, and not a decade like Richard's saying. It would happen much quicker. I think I'm about to lose connection. But
Joe, I mean, he's lost connection. But yeah, sorry, Sam, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, in terms of the time for. Oh, Joe, are you back? Was that you?
yeah. Basically, sorry guys, this thing switched networks again. I gotta shut off my web. Drop me again. I'll come right back on. Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead, Simon.
Yeah, in terms of time frame, with the closure of the strait, I think I think it's a question of how bad do they want the crisis to get, because the crisis is helping all the powerful people. And so, as long as it stays within this bounded escalation, and America does need to, you're not gonna. America does need a crisis to justify a big money printing exercise. So, um, there needs to be a very large money print. There needs to be QE, and you can't get political support for QE unless you got a crisis. And so this achieves that goal. And now we're starting to get yields globally, like really get to distressed territory. Like UK is almost at 6%. Japan is breaking away, which kind of also splits the world up further. Um, and yeah, the US rates are above 5% now.
Ahmed's going to be killed. He's going to get his head blown off, and so is Gary and Chris.
What was that?
Some random guy whose mic I saw, and I brought him up, and I have no idea who he is.
Yeah,
Let me block him.
Yeah, it's just obviously some Zai who listens to our panel, so they had Andrew's profile picture
Was
on
that-
it. So I brought it up.
was that his moment of fame?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
just
what
basically
what
sending
was
it
the
back
threat
to
he
them.
made? He made a threat, like someone's getting his
Yeah,
head
he
blown
said
off.
Gary. He said Gary.
Yeah, why Gary?
I don't know.
No, is that the guy that spoke? I thought it was this one with his hand up. Di Mutunga.
No,
No.
it was the guy with Andrew's profile.
Oh, I didn't catch him. Otherwise, I'd have blocked his bar.
It's not me.
Yeah, I know it wasn't you.
Simon, there was a comment that Elon made, and someone asked him for a prediction of what the coming years looks like. And he made a comment that's always stuck with me. He said in 2027, energy becomes currency. And this kind of plays into that, right? And I'm wondering if this is what he meant, because I've been trying to decipher what he meant by that. It's like a common thing in my head that I always like look for anything that would stick to it. And this is kind of the only thing that does.
Well, I'd say energy has been currency since 73, but we are transitioning from oil to LNG. And so it is a change. And everything's moving towards the LNG powered economy. And AI is just that perfect way of getting high energy prices, entering into an AI arms race, having the ginormous capex data center build up, and just throwing the entire world economy upside down in order to make this transition. So I do think that, but I think they're doing they're blowing out the dollar. They're doing a crack up boom. I think the dollar will continue to weaken after the Strait opens. But yeah, everything's going into LNG and data centers. Nothing stops this train. We the entire growth story from here is just data centers, AI, energy, and robotics. That's it. That's we have set the new world order, and it is powered by AI, robotics, and LNG. And there will be a massive build out in renewable energy and alternatives energy, and that whole, cleaner net zero agenda. That's back on track. It's so funny because throughout all of this AI thing, there was like zero like climate change concern. Yet we just went, the energy consumption is wild, and it just shows how engineered it all is. And now, we're transitioning to this LNG, and now the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is okay. Now everyone needs to build their own renewable energy, and it just so happens that China supplies all of that. So I'm seeing, that's why I'm saying I can see exactly how the big important players have set the world, what they've agreed as an alternative to World War III, and part of that was American private corporate interests negotiating what they get out of the equation and who's going to dominate which region. There's no chance I see this as ending in like the continuation of the unipolar moment. So, and I don't think it's correct to say Trump's dumb and just doing this. I don't think it's correct to say it's blackmail because this has been a continuation multi-decade strategy. And I don't think it's correct to say the most sophisticated intelligence and biggest interest in the world underestimated what was going to happen, because I think it was obvious. I think they knew exactly what would happen in Iran, and so and they game planned it out, and they knew how powerful an army Iran is. So I don't think any of the the narratives are correct, other than the most powerful leaders and most powerful money forces in the world have decided what the order looks like, and they're executing it.
And the open the straight, you effing lunatic, is all a WWE performance. Over the top, when he done nothing to really open it. Tried a strategy that someone like me within 5 minutes said all they got to do is hit a merchant ship and it ends. Doing things that have no plan whatsoever. It makes sense to none of us, and we keep saying they're suicidal if they're going to do this, or they're suicidal if they're going to do that, or this is stupid. They're not being stupid. They're just playing theater for the rest of the world, pretending like they actually want this open while they're switching the corridors.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me. Like, I mean, like, to say that it's a conspiracy theory, I don't think is correct either. It's just world powers are setting world orders, and we're in a changing world order moment, and world powers would coordinate what that looks like. And they all have diplomatic ties. They all have communication channels. And you see the theatrics in the Russia-Ukraine war. Like, there was never meant to be peace there. It was okay. I mean, if you think Trump wants peace in Ukraine, and Trump's in charge of that, like, that's I think that's insanity to believe that.
But some, and like, I understand the need for war in the Middle East in order to cut off some of their production, so the West becomes number one. I get that. I don't get the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. If all these leaders are in check with each other, then why do you need the Russia-Ukraine war?
Well, because you don't end the forever war; you relocate the forever war, and the new forever war is domestically within America and in Europe. That's a requirement. If the Middle East, if the Western military is going to lose the profits from the Middle Eastern forever war, you need a new playground. And I think Europe is that playground, and I think it will just be continual justification for money printing and spending on weapons. And they'll just keep saying, "Yeah, let's try and get peace." All right, it's not happening there, and Putin doesn't agree to this, and Zelensky doesn't agree to this, and I think you can keep that racket going for at least another 3 years. And you can see they're building out across UK. Tommy Robinson, Elon Musk, really stoking the fire across UK. You can see the immigration, racial tensions being stoked. You can see the domestic police state industry set up in America, all the closed border policies, ICE. I think they've set up an alternative business model, which is domestic terrorism, and that's the new model. And so you need to continue the whole, war on terror narrative, but domestically, and then you do the whole immigration thing with Europe. I think that will make up for all the lost profits of the forever war, and you can do defense contracts, and you can just lean into cybersecurity, AI, police, and surveillance state.
So, to be clear though, both of your positions are quite different in the sense of Joe, you believe that this is Trump enacting this act in order to save, to make basically to ensure America remains in control. Whereas Simon believes that essentially China is kind of a bit more higher up in this whole thing, the FISC is behind it, but this is just a coordinated, agreed, almost implosion of America in a sense, and the kind of retraction of America to its own hemisphere, right? So that is a major difference between you two.
Yeah, shrinking and asset stripping. That's what exactly what they did to the British Empire.
Yeah, and that makes both your positions distinctly different, right? Because for
Well,
Joe, it's not
I
that.
think Joey, let me not misquote you, but I think Joe believes the same outcome happens, but this is a final attempt by Trump to throw everything to try and dominate, but it will be a failed mission and have the same result.
Yeah, I think this was like a last ditch effort attempt to take the to secure the petrodollar. I still don't know if they'll be successful or not. This whole theory about moving it to the west actually is a bit more smart, but can you keep the Strait closed that long? And what happens when bond rates continue to rise? Like, things are going to break seriously. Can you really do this for 2 years? I don't know if they can.
I don't think they can. The bond market would
Hmm.
blow up if you did this for 2 years, I think.
Well,
Yeah.
keep the Strait closed for 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah. If you kept
Because
if you kept this closed for 2 years, I think you'd lose U.S. Treasuries as the reserve collateral, and I don't think China or America want that.
But Simon, it's not 100% closed. That's the thing, right? So they are kind of controlling the flow, what gets in and out. And they could increase that a bit, right? Ships will pay Iran, they get out. U.S. says nope, this one doesn't, this one does. And you leave it like that. You can still control bond prices if you're able to do that. I just don't know if they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, and I don't. If I were China in this situation, I don't think I would have agreed to handing over that much power to America. I think they would have agreed that the Middle East becomes West Asia and the Gulf countries in Iran maintain a degree of stability.
But think about it. If the theory's right and you're kind of agreeing with it, right? And look, if it's the theory I had, Richard added a missing piece. You can't now, and you can't in a year from now, or let's say 6 months from now. I don't know about a year from now. 6 months from now, you couldn't just hand it over to the Chinese, because there would be still too much production. Like right now, Middle East would kick the West's ass in terms of oil and LNG. You need more destruction, right? And look, guys, what I'm saying is not what I wish would happen. I'm just telling you what US would need. So don't come at me. US would need more destruction of LNG and oil production in that region before it would ever give it to China, right? They're not going to give a equal or a higher stake to them. Do you agree with that, Simon, or no?
Well, I think there's also the alternative energy play here, because China also has its own domestic energy. It's not fossil. They got their coal, they got their alternatives, they got their solars. So there's that whole play. I think there's a peak oil play here, and I think there's abundant LNG, and I think that would have been the part of the equation that I think the abundant LNG for the Western Hemisphere, powered by America, is certainly that side of the world. But I think China had more leverage in terms of the outcome in the Middle East and the eastern side of the world. And so I don't. We will know the answer depending on how long they keep this strait closed. So if this is something that happens, just say another month to 2 to 3 months in order to really manufacture a crisis that benefits the private interest in the West, then I think that's a negotiated outcome. If this is what Richard believes, and America does have that kind of power, then yeah, they'd keep this closed for 2 years and just and dominate, which I don't think that's going to happen.
See, this is, I guess this is, remember we kept trying to see who's right, although we do agree on the outcome, like whether successful or not, we agree what's trying to be done. I think it's the West's last ditch effort. And I guess we'll find out if they wind up staying there and weakening the Middle East more. Then I would assume that is not some deal made with China, between China and the US.
Yeah, I'd agree. I agree. The duration at which and the damage inflicted upon the Middle East will kind of determine which theory is right. I know we've moved the goalpost slightly, but based upon the information that we have now, it's very apparent that there's no desire to open the strait, because all the powers that benefit from it. So no one's in a battle to try and get the strait open. I don't think any of the narratives that are being pushed are real. I think the strategy is disgusting but incredibly rational. It's not like, oh, Trump's been humiliated or anything like that. I mean, he does get a public humiliation ritual to believe the narrative that he's serving America. But behind the scenes, it's actually, if you take out all the ethics, it's actually a very sound strategy. But
Yeah,
I do believe,
I agree.
and I looked at that when I saw when I looked at what happened in Shanghai. I see a very powerful China relative to
Yeah,
Trump.
I agree
And
100%. I think
yeah,
China it's almost embarrassing that you take 20 CEOs and founders, the top in American history, to China, and they all walk away with nothing except for one, for the Boeing thing, and that's it.
yeah, and
Not a single one of them got a deal.
even if you look at what the White House said in the announcement, oh yeah, China's going to buy oil. Well, China stopped buying American oil in March. No, it was May 25, and stopped buying American LNG in February 25. Dollar Liberation Day was April 25, and so they were always going to purchase that oil. It's nothing new. They just took the card away when they were doing the trade negotiation during Liberation Day. And so all that would be is a return to the status quo. And China's buying energy from wherever it comes from. So it doesn't care. Whoever will sell energy to China, China will buy it in abundance. And then you had the kind of clownish farmer part, which is the same trade negotiation that was happening with India. So, and then what was the visa deal? Well, of course, China's not going to allow visa into China because that's everything they built for the decades. But if financial centers want an integration into SIPs, and they get to charge fees on a multipolar world of multi currencies going into the SIP system, then Visa and MasterCard would be there. The Boeing share price collapsed because they were meant to buy 500 and they just went back to the 200. So that was a non-event. Blackstone. I mean, Blackstone, that's a deep state VC private equity type of investor. So everybody there was big tech. None of the military apart from Boeing was there. Big tech and big finance. And to me, that symbolizes the deals that I think they've been negotiating for a long time, and this was just symbolic. And the fact that the symbolism, because I don't think they're going there to negotiate anything. It's all just symbolism. And so the symbolism to me was symbolic of a multipolar world order. And now we're setting up for a show strength while weak retreat, which will be the new outcome of the opening of the strait whenever it opens. And I don't know whether we need an escalate to de-escalate Hollywood movie, or whether we're setting up for a narrative. But I do know that bonds are getting very stressed right now, and we've got Kevin Walsh coming in.
What
And
what can they do to fix the bonds without opening the strait?
the only thing they can do is manufacture a crisis and justify money printing so that the Fed can do yield control. But they need a disaster.
Money printing here is going to increase inflation like crazy.
Yeah, that's why they need a crisis, because fundamentally AI is acting deflationary, but you can tell the yields are saying the inflation's going to get awful. But you can only tame it with a recession, or extreme productivity and unemployment from AI, or you do, and then you create, or you just allow inflation to rip with yield control and money printing. But there's no good solution.
Yeah, I certainly don't see one.
In fact, it's the only solution. Money printing is the only solution. It's the only solution. There isn't anything else.
I understand.
Unless you're willing,
to
have America's. You can't have a stock market crash and a recession. It will blow out the deficit to the. I mean, it's already at 7% of GDP, which is the highest it's ever been since World War II. And you've got 125% debt to GDP at the same time as 7% deficit to GDP.
I just feel like the
If
American
you had reduction in tax revenue, that would blow it out to like 15%. That would be that's empire over.
I think the American people are not ready for what's about to happen. Like I thought it was bad, but this is actually really bad. Like worse than I thought for the average American person.
Yeah, which is why I think you have all the growth building data centers, you replace everyone's jobs, and you move to UBI, and you have a crack up boom in inflation, and you get the money printing. That's the only strategy I can see. I can't see another
But you're
strategy.
saying that in what timeline?
I think for the whole Trump administration, and then whoever's next will be a tech bro that has to deal with the Palantir world.
No, but the UBI part.
Oh, UBI. I mean, UBI only happens if you get like a stock market crash that wipes out banking, and then you replace it with some kind of UBI. You need a real disaster for that. That would be probably 3-4 years.
Yeah, I told Simon the other night, 2032, because that's when the M2 money supply just goes on rocket ship mission. But it could happen before then.
Yeah, so crack up boom, inflation, extreme wealth inequality. Those that own assets are about to take over, and those that can't afford it, they're going to be selling their assets. And if you need to hike rates, which you may do, I mean, the rest of the world's going to have to hike rates, but I don't know what US is going to do. But if we're headed for inflation, they're going to have to hike rates, and that's disastrous for the real estate market, which is another justification for a big print, I guess, bail out the banks and the real estate market.
Yeah, that's what I told someone too. Like he asked me about why do I think millionaires will have problems as well, is because most millionaires made their money on real estate, and real estate's I do think is going to be sacrificed a bit here.
And I think this is why they need us distracted. They right now want you blaming someone else as the enemy. They want you believing it's the Democrats, or they want you believing it's the immigrants, or they want you believing it's the communists, or they want you believing it's the radical Europeans, but they don't want you looking at the real enemy because it's or even Israel. They don't want you looking at the real enemy, and that is the financial elites asset strip in the West, and they're going to end up with all the assets, and the tech bros are going to run the economy, and the government is just a piggy bank, and it's going to be completely hollowed out, and the constitution is going to be replaced with Domestic Terrorism, Genius Act, Clarity Act, Bank Secrecy Act, Patriot Act. I can't see another strategy.
I'm with you. I'm curious what the rest of the panel thinks.
Do you know when you in the corporate world, when there's one side who's got the business and the other side goes with a bid, it's the side that goes with a bid will go heavily armed. And when I haven't been online for a couple of days properly, but I saw some of Suleiman's post about China. And I can't help but feel that this was supposed to be a summit between two leaders, Trump and Xi, right? In the same way that, MBS went to America to have a summit and it was two leaders. But Trump decided to go with all the tech bros to impress China, almost to beg for some concessions and some business. Look how much we've got. Look who we've got. Look how much collateral I've got. I've got the heads of all the industries on my Air Force One coming to see you. And I do think, Simon, you kind of mentioned this before as well about this being, it just hasn't happened. And I was looking at the ports that have been blown up just in the last decade to two. Remember the Beirut port? There's quite a few of them that were blown up. Some are partly functional now and some of them are. That hasn't happened by chance. That's happened by design. So this has been a long time coming. We just didn't see it. There was no, Fujairah was, I think it was 2020, 2019, Beirut was 2020. I remember the Beirut port. I'd just been to Beirut shortly before that, and then the port blew up and it just went up into smoke and nobody knew why. There was a port in Pakistan, in Karachi, 2021. These were all a year apart from each other. All major ports, a year apart from each other. They just all blew up. No understanding why, no explanation why. And I just think this did start a long time ago.
Yeah, completely agree. And that is the model. The model for managing a transition is blow up and rebuild, and whoever ends up investing is the one that won the negotiation. And it's profitable to blow things up and rebuild them, and that is, if you read the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, he laid out that whole business model as an agent that was there to fudge numbers through the IMF, engage in all these regime changes, and the model is blow up, rebuild, and force debt, and whoever and that is the economic hitman relationship. And I think a lot of countries are playing that game now because there's not just one. And yeah, I'm convinced that this has been a long time in the coming, and it's not random at all.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking at, because you say this often, that Mick goes and destroys and Fick goes and builds up. And I was looking at and I need to read up on it again, but I think I mentioned this on the last space about Iraq. And how did the CEO of Halliburton end up as the vice president of America suddenly, and then get all these major contracts to rebuild in Iraq? And they were funded by the federal budget in America. His Halliburton contracts were, taxpayers paid his company or his ex-company, but then a lot of the other contracts came from within Iraq, and American corporations made money. But the federal budget that went for the rebuilding of Iraq, it was corporations that made money and American taxpayers that lost out. So this is what you say is the model, destroy and rebuild and destroy and rebuild. And it's what we're seeing now. It's just that we're a little bit, well, I'm certainly a bit more kind of aware of it.
Yeah, and if you look at the
Um,
revolving corridor, you see that the same people were executives at Goldman, then executives at Big Oil, then they become Treasury Secretary, and then they become Fed, and they just revolve through and rotate through all of those roles. And yeah, the idea is you create the type of environment that justifies the debt. You dump the debt on the Americans in a Ponzi scheme, which is the fiat currency, and you use that in order to confiscate all the assets, and all the value goes into the stocks until eventually it's a monopoly board, and a smaller and smaller group own all. And that's a 100-year strategy from and we're kind of there, but yeah. And you can see, just look at all the leadership. It rotates through that private public partnership.
and that's why, Simon, you know, when and I don't want to get off topic because I know D Mutanga had his hand up, and we'll go to him in a second. But that's why I don't think replacing a person in the American system is going to solve anything, because it's systematic. You know, somebody who's never been a politician like Trump because of his money can come into politics. Somebody who's never been in politics, like, you know, the head of Halliburton, the CEO, can just walk in and become VP. It's all global corporations that run everything there, and the rest of it is just a facade. The whole, you know, voting system, and this man's going to be better than that man, the two-party system, it's a facade. It's the same here. So funnily enough, there's a lot of talk about Keir Starmer resigning, and I was reading that JP Morgan turned around and said, we're going to pull our money out, we're going to pull deals out if you know, Keir Starmer's made to step down. So again, big corporations involved in politics. So yeah, the whole system.
Yeah, and you can see all the policies and this energy. You know, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz was a repricing event that's going to price so many people out of their assets and concentrate so much wealth upwards. And that is the goal. And that's the game by which people have to play within. But you're quite right, and that's, even if you look at Iraq, as an interesting case, because it starts with you know, the financing of the war. Then it's the theft of the gold and the theft of the oil. Then it's the Halliburton rebuild contracts and Maine and all those different companies that negotiate all the reconstruction. But then the private, because it ends up all in private hands, with the Americans ending up with the debt through the bond market, the banks get the yield on all the debt. The Americans assume the debt. Their value is devalued, so they end up continually working. Their wages don't go up at the same rate as inflation, so they become debt slaves, and they consume more and more on credit cards, and it's a whole debt trap. But because the institutions that benefit are global in nature, they end up selling their assets. And if you look at the infrastructure in the end ended up 30% being built by China. And so China's ends up with serious influence in Iraq. And so they built up their capacity to be in this moment where they could resist against the model. And now they're able to resist against the model because the West has been hollowed out. So then you have to figure out the model for once the whole West is hollowed out. And to me, that's what we're witnessing.
Crazy times. Let's go to D Mutunga. Jump in. I saw you had your hand up earlier, and then we'll come to you, Andy. Welcome, and Cyrus, welcome.
Yeah,
Go
good
ahead.
evening. Simon, I've got 3 questions that I wanted to just hear your opinion on. The first one is, can we say really if China is going to assume the global leadership like the US has taken for the past decades, is China willing to internationalize the renminbi, or I see a hesitation from China in terms of that maybe capital flight, and I feel like the US remains to be the biggest capital market in the world. I just want you, I know there's the SIPs that we talk about, but I also see the power of the US, especially when we talk of stable coins. So can you just tell us what you see is the sort of the future of the monetary system, considering stable coins or the internationalization of the renminbi, so that at least, because for me, I just feel like
Yeah,
China does
I
not
get the
meet.
question.
Yeah,
So you're exactly right. I don't think China wants world reserve currency because it doesn't want the economic hitmen to take over its economy. And currency war has always been the mechanism for colonization. And so it is ultra aware of that. And so that's why you end up in a multipolar world, because there won't be, I don't think China will be a dominant global uniparty power. It will be, it will ensure that it has its capital controls and it can't have a corporate takeover like the West. So that means, what does that mean? Well, you don't need to get rid of the dollar as the pricing mechanism. You can have the dollar as the pricing mechanism, but it's losing its role as world reserve asset. That's already happening. Gold took over the treasuries as world reserve asset. But you'll find that less and less foreign central banks are willing to use treasuries as collateral, which is already happening. And so it becomes domestically important, which is the stable coin part, because they're backed by treasuries. So that becomes a domestic currency, but it can be weaponized, so it won't be used. And what do stablecoins do? They replace the SWIFT rails with blockchain rails. So that it depends on the blockchain that's used, and it will be a control chain or a private chain, like whatever. But the important part of the petrodollar was the purchase of US treasuries, and that's already stopped. It wasn't settling in dollars or pricing it in dollars. It was once you have dollars, you have to buy treasuries. And then when you hold treasuries, you end up having your assets that can be seized, and the yield is used to spend back on US companies, and you're forced into your entire money printing supporting US government debt. That's what stops. And that's what turns America into a regional power backed by stablecoins. But in terms of what you settle with, you'll settle with whatever anyone's willing to accept. You can price things in dollars, settle in your local currency, and you can build a network of central bank digital currencies to circumvent SWIFT, which would be integrated with those stable coins. So the answer is you don't have to dominate. That's just that's kind of a very American European paradigm. You just have to have regional influence and multipolarity. And I think the banks and finance houses have been preparing for that because it's more profitable to charge fees between multipolar financial centers than be subjected to one country like America, where the regulators could kind of imagine if there was a real nationalist movement in America and they actually decide to do something like what Hitler did, where you take back the currency and and you regulate away the institutions. That would be a big risk to finance. So I think they'd rather not have one government. So I think they'd rather have these financial centers all around the world and charge fees going from one system to the other. And that's what I think the new model is when you can't dominate the dollar anymore.
Thanks, so Simon. Do you want to welcome Cyrus in? Cyrus, hope you're doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you, Suleiman?
Yeah, doing great, doing great. How's things? What's your thoughts on the current political situation?
Man, a lot is going on. Very, very fluid situation, as we've discussed. As you know, I don't think any of this is planned. This is a very faulty play and faulty strategy by Trump to make a very high risk operation to try to hopefully topple the Iranian regime and find a more favorable system there, similar to what happened in Venezuela. You know, conflating Venezuela and Iran, you know, a real regional power to Venezuela, a a country that had not prepared for any type of interaction in a military sense with America. You know, it was a very stupid play, and it was pushed by Israel. This is something that Netanyahu personally has wanted for over 30 years, and a lot of really top psychologists have diagnosed Netanyahu with a form of psychopathy, and you have a perfect storm with Trump being a malignant narcissist and essentially maximizing his power in the executive branch to push these illegal wars. Essentially, this is a war of huge significance, of consequence, and our Congress is are supposed to be the force that dictates it, that will declare war of this magnitude, and that has been skipped. So the notion of one world government and corporations being in charge, it's just not really grounded in reality. The issue is that these corporations operate within the system that these regional hegemons set. The United States has always been a regional hegemon, it hasn't been a global hegemon. And we went from a bipolar system to a brief moment of unipolarity from the 90s really to maybe 2015. And at that point, China had reached a critical mass of industrial technology and economic prowess and military prowess to really be considered a near peer competitor. So this is really America still not having, drank from the chalice of multipolarity. This is something America has to accept, and America has accepted it. We are pivoting east. This issue with Iran has to resolve, ASAP. This is a huge blunder, and this is not a contested area. The Strait of Hormuz was open for business. Iran had always attempted to make peace with the United States since the 9/11 attacks, beginning with their assistance in the campaign in Afghanistan, to later the joint campaign against ISIS, which was a huge crisis for the Middle East. Iran has always been on the right side of the fight and had assisted the United States. It's just our misguided Middle East policy, which is dictated by Netanyahu and his cronies, essentially led to a series of failed states, beginning with Iraq, which was obviously a false war based on false intelligence provided by Netanyahu that was heavily pushed by the neocon Zionist AIPAC-backed cronies. These are wars that are clearly to the detriment of the United States and really to the detriment of Israel, but they're so hell-bent on their, ethno-supremacist worldview and their greater Israel agenda that, they're their own worst enemy as well.
Can I ask you a question, Cyrus?
So, what's that? Go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? So,
Of course.
do you believe that the combination of Israeli intelligence and American intelligence miscalculated, even though they'd wargamed it out exactly what would happen in Iran and it would lead to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz? And even in the national security strategy, they were talking about the closure of Hormuz and protecting it and all that stuff.
Right.
Do you believe that they miscalculated it? And then my second question is, if this was driven by Israel, Israel drives its power from a strong America. And so why would they want to sacrifice America if it really weakens their position?
Yeah, great question. One, we shouldn't use the word, Mossad and Israeli intelligence with the U.S. intelligence in one sentence. They do cooperate in some operations, but the Mossad has been, doing massive espionage on the United States, our military defense industrial complex. It's a big issue. So don't think that you assume Israel is our 51st state in the United States, and that's just simply not true. There's been a lot of friction, starting with John F. Kennedy. If you just read the Ben Gurion letters between John F. Kennedy and Ben Gurion, you'll quickly realize that Israel is not the 51st state of the United States. They have their own agenda, and it's based on racial supremacy. It's not even a Jewish thing. It's an Ashkenazi thing, and they're more of a secular ethno state. They really are not a
But
Jewish
do you
state.
believe that Mossad
Uh,
thought
so,
that?
but let me finish let me finish answering the question. So, our intelligence is a lot more, than our national intelligence assessment. Luckily, we interact with our population much better than Israel does. So, if you analyze the U.S. intelligence assessment, which is usually compiled by multiple, DIA, CIA, NSA.
Cyrus, I just want to, before you go any further, WMD's hoax started with the CIA. And the CIA, and in the UK, it was Tony Blair who produced a dossier saying the UK can be hit within 45 minutes with a WMD from Iraq. It wasn't Mossad. I hate to say it, it wasn't Mossad. It was the CIA.
Yeah, from what I remember, it was essentially General Colin Powell that came in with that little vial, and our CIA assessments
Yeah,
said
that
that
was
it came from one
Israeli.
source.
The fake Cyrus continue. Yeah, the false anthrax was Israel, but do
It
continue.
was Israeli, and in fact, our CIA assessment, Beatrix, if you go into the depths of what was released and declassified, it said it was based on one source, and it was a very thin thread. So that's simply not accurate. We were duped. This was Netanyahu's war, and the CIA has rogue elements. Don't think the CIA are angels and they're doing good things. Operation.
Yeah, no, Cyrus, I don't deny that Israel wanted the Middle East destroyed. I don't deny that Iran's war was something Netanyahu wanted for a long time, for decades. As you rightly say, there's videos going back of him decades, right? And he's probably jumping for joy that Trump did this. But where I find it a little bit difficult, and I give the mic back to you, because on the one hand, you're saying our intelligence services are great. It's not the 51st state. But on the other hand, the CIA, they were duped. And let me just finish. They were duped by Israel. Like, really, they're supposed to be one of the best intelligence agencies in the world. They all knew they were lying, right? They all wanted well, let me just finish first, and then I'll let you jump right in because I'm going to come right back to you. But all the corporations, if you read the book by Michael Moore, what's it called? Hey, Dude, Where's My Country? He talks about all the corporations that wanted to asset strip Iraq. And they were all in it together. The guy who exposed the WMD lies in the UK, the UN weapons inspector, he was called Dr. David Kelly. He was found dead in the woods. He exposed that Tony Blair's dossier was a lie. And when people, and I won't go in the long story, but the short story is when people push for an inquiry, because obviously he was a doctor, he was a UN weapons inspector, but he was familiar with a lot of the doctors, and they said there's no way he committed suicide. We want an inquiry. The government did a long inquiry into how he died, and then they buried the results for 60 or 70 years. So in our lifetimes, we'll never know how he died. And they buried the results. So there's a lot that went on behind the Iraq war. And I don't believe that all these intelligence agencies, the UK and CIA and everybody, were duped because of some anthrax hoax. I think they were all in it together and they all benefited from it together. But on the one hand, when you say that, this is for regime change, you still believe that Trump wants regime change in Iran to fix this. At the end of the day, Trump keeping that Strait of Hormuz closed is only harming the American people. He's done zero to get regime change in the last month. Zero. And then you say it's time America faced up to the fact that this is a multipolar world and, it's where China's going. So then it's not about regime change, is it? If they need to wake up to the fact that this is now a multipolar world and they're going to have to deal with China and all of this, then it goes towards the things that we were talking about before. It's not just about regime change. So you're kind of in the balance of both. But go ahead, Cyrus.
Yeah, so this is America's wars, right? So the UK is just a passenger seat. So it comes down to America making these decisions, and the folks you named, Tony Blair, Dick Cheney, Wolfowitz. These are all part of the neocon, warhawk, APAC lobby folks, right? So they represent only part of America, right? They happen to push Congress by fear mongering into that war. So it's clear that our empire, the U.S. empire, is divided from within. So there is certainly a fight for.
Biden signed off that he had direct evidence of WMDs and he'd seen it. So they didn't push Congress. Congress signed off on it willingly, and Biden was one of those people.
It was a big debate. I mean, we were lied to, and essentially the CIA, their final estimate wasn't a smoking gun, right? So we went in there. So these were Israel's wars. So if you want to think that,
Do you not
did this
think
for
the
its own interest,
CIA would have their own intelligence, or they just rely on Mossad?
They didn't. They gave their assessment, which was the source was not to be fully trusted. That was the CIA's assessment. Colin Powell got up there, not the CIA, the head of CIA. Show me one video that the CIA said they had the smoking gun. The CIA never said that. That was Mossad intelligence, and it was Wolfowitz and his cronies, Cheney and Bush was really their puppet, right? Bush wasn't assertive, right? So it all ties to Israel's agenda, the AIPAC agenda. They've been working on this for decades, right? So their influence grew to the pinnacle that what it is
And the
now, but really
stock market stimulus was an accident, right?
But those are because of the function of the way we set our capitalistic system with the railroads. You're mistaking, you're conflating the corporate corruption and the Federal Reserve System and the hijacking of our financial system with the technocrats rule the world. That's just not how the world works. These technocrats operate within the state and within the empire. Right now, there's a rising empire in the east. It's China, and they are, now we've joined at the hip with them, right? So by design, we
If the
contribute
state's in
greatly
charge, how come
to the
Israel's
rise
able
of
to
China.
take over the US government?
They haven't. That's why you have lobby groups that have been able to coerce a large number
But
of
only
our
Israel. No other lobby can do what Israel does.
right, exactly, because it's a multi-front. Their lobby is not just a
So
lobby. They have financial assets. They have. Yeah, I'm trying to explain.
the
I'm trying to
companies that
explain what
make
makes
all this
AIPAC
money,
different.
they're kind of like
I'm
victims that
trying to.
get duped into making shitloads of money by Israel.
It's incidental to the environment. Companies are greedy by nature everywhere, right? So the Chinese companies that are 75% owned by the Chinese government, they operate the same. They're efficient, they're ruthless, and they operate within the opportunities that are presented to them. And the opportunities are are dictated by the success of the hegemonic powers of their empire. So Chinese companies are becoming relevant and dominant because the Chinese power as the empire is rising, right? So not because these companies are rising. So this is just a fallacy. Your entire thinking is just not grounded in reality. You need to sit across someone like Professor Pape or John Mearsheimer or Jeffrey Sachs, who's an economist. And they're anti-establishment, they're anti-globalist, so
Are
they're
they
anti-APAC, right?
economists?
Jeffrey Sachs says yes. I suggest you
Yeah,
read into it instead of
you mean the
instead of
IMF lackey who worked he was a contractor to the IMF.
instead of John Perkins, who claims he worked for the NSA and all these dubious claims. Like listen to like real Harvard and University of Chicago economists who are on the
Yeah,
right side.
Cyrus, I'm not trying to do qualifications here, but I got a master's in economics. I spent 25 years in
I do too, though.
economics.
But I
Cool.
do too.
But
I
I'm
do
just
too. We have a
saying, it's
similar.
not like I know economic theory. I get it.
But no credible academic in the field, even those who are anti-establishment, agrees with this, that the technocrats are running the world and they're setting the crisis, that the Strait of Hormuz is all planned, they're all in cahoots, and they communicate in back channels. Hey, we're going to do this. It's nonsense. These are
So
real powers that are competing, and they
you've never heard of technocracy, corptocracy. You've never studied any of the economic thought around corporate takeover of government, because I can point you to all the research if you'd like to actually study it.
all it will do is point to corporate corruption and how unchecked a capitalistic system can be to the detriment of the empire. Certainly we're behaving for multiple reasons, one of them being corporate corruption and big money influence like BlackRock. You're onto a lot of right things, so I'm so on board with what you're saying. You're spot on as far as exposing corporate corruption, but your worldview that this is the tip of the spear and this is what's guiding policy and it's guiding the strategies of great powers is just fundamentally
But
wrong.
how do you
I have
square that with your belief that Israel and the deep state can do it, but way more powerful, larger companies that have significantly more money and big oil and big energy, they can't do it. Only Israel can. How do
But
you
it's way
square
more
that?
than money. That's what the definition of power comes in. Power doesn't equate
But your
singularly
theory
on.
is that APAC through money is
Let me
able to do
explain.
it.
Let me explain. It's not through money, through power. I was trying to explain. You keep cutting me off. They own the media. They have access to the narrative for decades. It's not a new thing. Look at that. Look at how censored Suleiman's space is. Right. It's heavily censored. Right. So when they have access to what message gets out, it's
So
Hasbara
sorry, are
narrative
you saying
control.
that the media is not
So
companies? Are you saying that the media is not companies?
yeah, but they are they're in concert. They are part of APAC, right? They are part
How are they
of
part of
the
APAC?
they're
They're
part of
public companies in
they're
the
part of
US stock market.
their strategy is guided by what works for Israel and the Israeli agenda. And by far, it's so easy to demonstrate. you cannot argue this, right? That these companies, the legacy media,
No, but
is
your
on the
argument is that the
there's
government
no argument. It's
hold
an
on,
objective fact.
no, I get it. I do know that the Israel lobby is an important lobby, but your argument is that Israel is the only lobby, and that all companies are subordinate to the government with the exception of Israel.
It's not Israel's not a company, right? Israel is a foreign state
Yes,
that was funded by way of what happened post World War I, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and then later World War II, and the Balfour Declaration, that the Rothschild family, and essentially the Zionist movement that was incepted in the 1800s.
You mean the same Rothschilds that created a central banking empire and a corporate structure of investment banking,
We're talking about
but
Israel.
they can't control things. Only
We're
Israel
saying
can.
what makes Israel unique. We're saying what makes Israel unique. So when a nation like the United States is beholden to companies like Goldman Sachs,
But
who
you do
essentially
realize
run the Federal
the market
the
capitalization of
Federal
Rothschild
Reserve.
Investment Bank is bigger than the entire
But we're not
GDP of
talking about the
Israel.
Rothschilds. We're not talking.
Yeah, but
We're not talking about the Rothschilds.
you were saying only Israel is
I
able to
started
use
Balfour
lobbying.
Declaration. I was talking about the Balfour Declaration that was written by the British Empire to the Rothschild family. So go look at who it's written to. Dear Lord Rothschild. That's how it starts. So you want me not talk about it? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I
So
understand the Balfour Declaration, yes, and I
apparently
understand that there was a large
apparently not.
corporate interest behind that venture.
Cyrus, was the Balfour Declaration for a state of Israel?
It was for that endeavor. Yeah, so it was definitely for the endeavor to make a state of Israel in Palestine. And, it had all these safeguards. Obviously, that was all nonsense.
Do you know Rothschild did
Nothing
not
to do
want
with
an individual
oil,
state?
nothing to do with profiting from war, nothing to
No,
do with any of that. The
oil
Rothschilds
is a
never,
necessity.
the Rothschilds are subordinate to the U.S. government and the British government, and they don't profit from war. They're fully under the control of the government.
But many people profit from war. There's Iranian companies that profit from war. There's Chinese companies. There's
So
Russian
look, this
companies. So these are baseline understandings. So
Cyrus. There's a couple of important points. So look, with the media example is an important example because a media company is a corporation, and so if a corporation, if their entire perspective was to profit make, then you wouldn't have a scenario where media would be harming themselves in order to harm profit. And so if you look at, for example, X, if you look at the other social medias, but let's take X as an example. So the fact that they're restricting people's engagement, the fact that they're restricting engagement of people, which is the vast majority of people who are anti-Israel, demonstrates that actually, if it was purely about clicks and clicks equal views and views equal advertising, then it would be very simple. You would not be restricting all of our accounts, as well as the accounts who are anti-Israel, and boosting people who are putting the Israeli position forward or the Zionist position forward. But there's a reason for that. The reason is quite simple, because it's not solely about profit making. It actually is that Israel is so powerful that they're able to control and influence media platforms for their benefit. Now, there's other corporations for sure, but other corporations will do it for maybe, for example, other corporations or other lobby groups will do it for their own financial profit making while still understanding the zeitgeist they were in. So, like, you take any of these companies, Disney or wherever, they will be willing to lose money if it means that they're able to be in congruence with the Israeli and Zionist policy. So the fact that we're having such censorship, it's not the marijuana lobby that's doing the censorship, it's not the I don't know, the oil company that's doing the censorship, it's specifically Israel. And where really media, and an example is how harm this platform has become over the last 2 weeks. Well, for a very long time, it is deteriorating a lot. Where people are now moving away from the platform, looking for other avenues, is an example that actually, as a company, they should be looking at profit making. They should be doing, looking at what benefits them in the financial perspective. But instead, they're looking at what is the most pro-Israel position. And then it's not about, for example, advertisers wanting harmful or non-harmful content, because actually, if you attack Muslims or Christians, your content is boosted. It's boosted significantly, especially attacks on Muslims. It's boosted significantly on social media. All those people become super viral. So it's not even about things that are distasteful to advertisers. It's specifically about an agenda controlled perspective, and we see that more than anything else. And so that's just an example of how the Israeli lobby has control, and the lobby control isn't just solely based on financing. I know, like for example, when some of these Zionists are debate, they're like, "Oh, but Qatar gives more money." It's possible they do, but then that just demonstrates that money isn't the only factor. Money is a factor. Blackmail is a factor. Being so entrenched in the United States government for 50 years is a huge factor. So all of these things are huge factors that cause the situation to occur. And in terms of like, I think Beatrix mentioned Michael Moore. Well, Michael Moore, if I remember right, and do correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he do a video on 9/11? And
Yeah.
was it Fahrenheit 9/11? And he didn't mention Israel, right? Or did he mention the Israelis being behind 9/11? And so again, it shows how everything was so controlled. How can you investigate 9/11 and leave the most crucial aspect of it
He
out
mentioned
and
the
blame?
government being behind it.
Sorry?
The U.S. He mentioned the U.S. government being
Yeah,
behind it.
exactly. So he mentioned the U.S. government being behind it, but he didn't mention Israel being behind it. And Israel, it was an important component within that entire thing. And these groups are all willing to talk about America being behind things and even Saudi Arabia being behind things, but they're never willing to talk about Israel being behind things. And Michael Moore, I know he's a Jewish guy or whatever, I think he is anyway, being behind it. Just want to thank Chaos, and then give it back to, sorry, Cyrus, I jumped in. I want to give it back to the KSM level 1 membership. Appreciate you joining the membership. Appreciate your support. And the cool with 2 super chats. The first one said, to boil it down, money is your god. Call it corporations or whatever you want. And the biggest worshippers of money are the most influential. Western liberal and colonial policies also play a major part in shaping the current situation. It's too simplistic to blame everything on Israel, is the cool saying. Okay, so Cyrus, sorry I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, thanks, Suleiman. So essentially, what it boils down to is that there's only one lobby that pushes an ideology, right? And this ideology is an apartheid ideology. It is a completely ethnocentric ideology that has nothing to do with America or American values. This is something clearly centered on the Zionist agenda, which was to create the state of Israel, and they succeeded, right? So I call that classical Zionism. What we're dealing with now is neo-Zionism, which is expansionist, which they took the Golan Heights. Their first mission was successful. Israel's the only country that's expanded its borders since World War II in the Middle East, right? So these are huge issues that there's a lobby group pushing for a foreign agenda, right? So we have distinct laws. If you're a tobacco lobby, you're trying to lower taxes on cigarettes in the U.S. for American consumers, right? You're not pushing anything for a foreign government. What JFK was trying to accomplish was to register AIPAC as a foreign lobby because they are lobbying on behalf of a foreign government, and the interests of Israel are not always aligned with the United States. In fact, most of the time they're not aligned, right? So there is a clear distinction between AIPAC, and their power is not just a money. It's not just their source, their access to unlimited resources. It's because they can control the media narrative, and folks like Ellison, and if you hear when they talk, and folks in the the AI push,
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but you're really not even saying anything important anyway. Dude, the host of this is crying about Chud the Builder being locked up, and you guys are listening to this guy's takes like he's someone that's serious. Like you guys are retarded.
Listen, I don't know who the hell you are, but don't come up and insult. Listen, shut your mouth. Don't come up and insult anybody on this panel. Behave with some respect. Put your hand up. Nobody ain't all that interested in your opinion anyway. I don't know who the hell you are, right? But this is a cordial space where we behave like human beings and have cordial discussions and disagreements. Nobody's a retard here apart from you, because everybody else behaves like a civilized human being. So I'm going to drop you down. You're going to request again if you want to come up, and you're going to behave like a normal human being. Sorry about that, Cyrus. Even I was waiting to speak to you because I had something to say to you about the CIA thing, but do go ahead, Cyrus.
All good. I don't think
That's probably a double
you shouldn't give him the space anyway. He called you a dumb bee, so he obviously doesn't have the.
That's mad funny.
He didn't call. He said the host.
Honestly, with the dude I interrupted, I don't have beef with. It's the fact that the host is a retard and.
He's calling the host. I don't know who keeps bringing him up. How's he coming up? Was that you?
I want to respond to him as well. Anyway.
Okay, go on then.
First of all, this guy's the retard because all you can do is respond with the word retard. Why not explain your position or idea? I don't even know what he's talking about in terms of Chud the Builder. But yeah, maybe if he was able to articulate his points, and maybe his family members had given him some kind of education, he'll be able to relay his point. I actually don't even know what he's talking about. So the
It's
problem
nonsense.
is,
I mean, he's
the
an idiot.
problem is, I did want to. Well, I'm saying I wanted to hear what he had to say, but the thing is, he was so slow that he wasn't able to articulate. Probably likely a lack of education. This is what I noticed with a lot of these people. I don't know if this guy's far right or whatever, but a lot of them just don't have any education. You see, they drop out of school and then they think that, and so they're, because of that, internet gives them this false delusion that they have the ability to articulate points, which they don't. And this is a prime example of that. But go ahead, Cyrus.
Thank you,
Can
Suleiman.
I add some context after Beatrice?
Yeah, but I gotta land
Yeah,
my
Cyrus,
plane
quickly
here.
wrap up because you've been going for a while.
Yeah, I was gonna. So essentially, these are, powers that accumulate power for whatever their means are, whatever their objectives are. They act on their own interests, and this simplistic worldview that now China is the only player left in the globalized one world government. You have Brazil, you have India, you have Iran now that is emerging as a global power. Each of them have their own interests. They're not in cahoots. So there's no historical context and there's no historical veracity to any of these theories. They're just no credible thinker and real academic that is trying to figure out and predict stuff. If you look at the real solid academics like John Mearsheimer in 2002, he predicted the Ukraine war, exactly how it played
Okay,
out. These
Cyrus,
are like,
you need to stop appealing to authority. I just find it so lame. Like, oh yeah, what about judge? Like, okay,
no,
whatever.
but these are these are
Well,
the
not
realist thinkers.
really. At the end of the day, these people are people. They're educated. We're people. We're educated. We all make our different positions
Of
and
course, 100%.
And Cyrus,
perspectives. I just find
Professor,
it just lame. Like John Mearsheimer isn't God, right? So
He's not,
and I need
but
to,
he's
because I'm
spot
sure
on.
when he was, I don't know if it's him, but one of these guys was doing an interview and he was even trying to, he was holding the same position that Israel doesn't control America. I'm pretty sure he was doing an interview making that claim. So again, these people aren't God. These people are human beings. They have an education. I have an education. You have an education. Simon does. Joe does. We all do. Not that guy was requesting. He seems like he was a dropout. But the rest of us are. So the point is, like, let's not appeal to authority. Like, just give your position, and that's where it is. Because I don't really care what someone has to say.
Sounds good.
but also
If
Cyrus,
if
just
Mearsheimer wants to come and relay his position, and then we can kind of analyze it and break it down and show the strengths and weakness of it, it's fine. But up until he's not willing to do that, like, let's not mention him.
But also
Do I need to wait
Cyrus,
for
you
hands
do
or can I add some
understand that
context?
professor is just a job of an institution where you get paid for your research, and whoever is paying for your research dictates whether you get published or not. And so there's a whole follow the money section in professorship as well.
100%. Like, listen, in order to essentially, as someone who came from the academic field, if you need to appeal to the kind of their framework in order to progress and progress in that, within those institutes, progress within those ideas. If you have a kind of heterodox position on anything whatsoever, they just don't publish you on any of these things. So it's,
well, he called out AIPAC. I mean, they try to crucify Mearsheimer because he wrote about AIPAC. He was one of the first ones to call them out. And also, you look at the character.
Bro, what is going on with you, Cyrus? I don't know what it is in your mind. It's like you just vomit everything out. Irrespective of whether you call it AIPAC, I already said, I can't remember if it was him or not. It was somebody on the interview. That being, he did, so one of these guys that you mentioned, because you mentioned about 3 people, did, I believe, in an interview, I need to double check it, saying Tucker Carlson, who was the guy who went on Tucker Carlson recently? Was it him or was it somebody else? Recently said, guess what? He doesn't think Israel controls America. And that's fine. You can hold that position. We have people on the panel who hold that position. That's not a problem. But my point is this, that I can disagree with him. We can all disagree with him. It doesn't mean, John Mearsheimer, he's God. He's got the, I worship him. He cannot be wrong. Like, you need to appeal to him. It's just the most stupid, retarded, most stupid argument ever. Don't appeal to authority. Like, these people could be wrong. Like, you don't need to worship them.
I don't worship them. I'm saying they said
please?
the theory. It's the theory, right? It's not the individual.
Yeah, so talk about the theory. Don't mention his name. Like, it's
let's talk economics. I know economics, Cyrus. So let's just talk about economics. Explain the exact theory. Are you talking about Ricardian economics? Are you talking about classical? Are you talking about Schumpeterian, like Keynesian? Like, we can go down an economics debate if you want to have one. But there are economic theories that
it's about geopolitics. Economics falls within geopolitics, right? It's about states. You're making the case that there is the technocrats and they're all in cahoots. I'm saying no. You have real bona fide powers like India, like Brazil, like Iran, like Russia, like China, and they're all competing for their own interests. Your
Correct,
theory
and they
says
don't.
no.
And you understand
There's a hidden
neoliberal. You
class.
understand
There's a hidden
neoliberal.
class
So
that
you,
rules the
yeah, but
world,
you
and
understand
that's just
neoliberal theory,
conspiracy.
right? That means that you understand neoliberal theory.
Like you can't answer me, so you come back with
No, I'm
questions.
not. I'm
You
saying
have to
that this is neo.
you have to
If you
explain.
want to put it
You have
in
to
an
you have to
if you want to put
explain.
it in an economics textbook, start
But
studying
I'm not putting an
neoliberal
economics
theory,
textbook.
liberal theories.
I know about I know
Okay,
about
so
it,
you
right? But that's not
understand
what
that that means that government
we're
is
talking about.
subordinate
Great
to
power
corporate
politics.
interest, right?
All right.
We're,
Daddy's home. Everyone, time to shut your ass up. Host.
Wait. So, Suleiman, you brought this guy up. You can
Not
speak to
co.
him, but I have it on good record that he did call me a dumb bitch, right? So he needs to be smashed for that, the potty little mouth, right? Your mum needs to scrub your little mouth out with some freaking bleach, you moron. Okay? So that's the first thing I'll say. Secondly, Cyrus, I'm going to finish what I was going to say to you, and then I'm going
I'm
to give
going
the
to
mic
finish.
to Suleiman to deal with this moron. Shut up! If you speak again, I
Why
will
can't you
boot
just
you.
act civilized? Like, I don't get it. This is the biggest spaces on X. We're having a academic conversation. I brought you 4 times, but you show a lack of ability to act civilized. Now, I don't know if it's your parents never taught you any manners, or maybe your parents never directed you or guided you, or maybe your parents abandoned you. But have some manners. Put your hand up. Let her finish your point. I'm gonna come to you. I want to hear what you gotta say, but you gotta act civilized. Like, maybe you've never been taught these things, but maybe you'll learn it. Maybe this is a point, because one thing I learned about Zionists and monarchists is their parents never taught them manners, and they always come and interrupt. And over time, we educate them, we illuminate them to say, look, come in, put your hand up. We will have an academic conversation. We will have some disagreements, but you'll be able to relay your argument. It seems like because of a lack of education, you don't have the ability to do so. So put your hand up and we will come to you. Go ahead, Beatrix.
Thank you very much. So just really quickly, you're right, Suleiman. Michael Moore didn't mention Israel, right? In Fahrenheit 9/11, he mentioned Saudi, he mentioned America.
Oh, wow.
But
Damn.
right, but do you know what? I thought that was Ryan. I was going to boot him, but that was you. But in his "Hey Dude, Where's My Country," where he talks about the Iraq War, he was really accurate. And just, Cyrus, on your point about the CIA didn't ever say, the CIA director George Tenet described the intelligence case against Iraq as a, and I quote, slam dunk. Slam dunk, he said. The CIA presented white paper after white paper and said it was their own intelligence. They were definitely not duped. They were in it together. They didn't believe that they were WMDs any more than UK intelligence did or Israeli intelligence did, but they were in it together at the behest of the corporations that went on to make billions, whilst American taxpayers footed the bill for people like Halliburton for those rebuilding contracts. That's all I wanted to add. And we'll come back to this. I'll pass it to Suleiman. Suleiman, go ahead.
Yeah, let's go to Ryan. Ryan, just make your point in a civilized manner. I want to hear what you got to say. This is going to be your last chance. If you're not able to do so, I'll just drop you and you'll never get a chance again. Go ahead.
All right. Because it seems like we're getting a little charged up over just
No,
rhetoric.
I'm chill.
No,
I'm chill. Go
okay.
ahead.
Because I was the only one that was cut off. I let everyone else speak. I was the only one that had to be cut
Yeah,
off and
it's my
censored.
space. Go ahead.
You came up and called me a dumb bitch. Of course you're going to be cut off. Do you think you're going to get the red carpet treatment?
Okay, go ahead, Ryan. I think it's double mute. I'll just wait for you to the mute.
Okay, all right, host. So did you not, or did you repost something being saying that Chud the Builder being arrested is the degradation of society?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
I
well,
said
go
he
to
is
your
an
go to
okay.
Ahmed.
So let me explain to you. So okay, you misunderstood the post that I said, and this is why. Let me just see. Maybe I wrote it wrong, but let me just make sure. Where did I say him being arrested is the degradation of society? Can you explain that?
You reposted a post
No,
that
I
had
actually
that
posted
position.
myself. I actually posted it myself. I didn't repost a post. I wrote. So let me just tell you. So this is why reading is really important. I know it's very hard when
Okay.
you're uneducated. So this is
Okay.
what I wrote. I put a picture of Chud. He's been arrested 6 times, so it shows 6 different images of him being arrested, right? and I wrote the degradation of society. Where does it say him being arrested is the degradation of society?
Okay, so you're saying it's good that he's arrested then, right?
I didn't even make that comment as well. So this is why, reading is really important. So just think about this. You came up, swore at me, swore at Beatrix, and it was all based on your inability to read, your inability to even understand a point. Now, I understand that maybe some aspects of this is vague, but it's quite clear. Degradation of society. If you look at the images, there's 6 images of him being arrested on 6 different incidences. So it's
So wait,
quite
wait, wait,
clearly your
wait,
lack
wait,
of understanding of a
wait.
post.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm
So this is
trying to
why
get you.
this is why
No,
education is really
but
important.
I asked you for a basic stake in a very well-known position. We all know what Chud the Builder did, and I'm asking you: is it good or bad that he's arrested? Anyone else that has actual take on this can say yes or
Listen,
no.
I'm not. I'm gonna come
Anyone
to that.
else can, but you,
YN.
because you're
I'm gonna
trying to
come
not
to
reveal
that.
how much of a Republican hack
Control
you are.
yourself. Control yourself. I'm gonna come to that. I'm gonna answer that. But before I do, because there's 2 elements of this. If you want my position on it, I will give you my position on it. But before we get to that, I'm just trying to demonstrate to you your behavior, right? So you came up on this space. This space is a geopolitical space about Iran. That being said, there was Cyrus and Simon. They were conversing about Iran. They were speaking in an academic manner with some disagreements. You came
Before
up,
I want to hear your
unmuted
political takes, I want to hear if you can hear 3 + 3 =
unmuted.
6, bro.
I'm gonna come to that's my space. And even if you were dropped, I would still explain my position on it. I'm not afraid of ever explaining my position on anything. This is how I became big, because I have controversial opinions on most issues. That being said, coming back to the point I'm saying, I'm just demonstrating your behavior. Do you think your behavior was appropriate where you came up, unmuted, swore at me, swore at Beatrix, and it was, first of all, that's inappropriate anyway. But anyway, do you think that was inappropriate? And then the worst thing is based on you not being able to read a post properly.
Okay. So when we're talking
Do you
about,
think that was appropriate or not? Yes or no?
Can I answer? Can I
Yeah,
answer
please.
in life? So if you're talking about my behavior being inappropriate, it could have been if you accept the results of the 2020 election. If you don't think that the results of the 2020 election were clear for Joe Biden, then no, my behavior is not unhinged at all, and you have no business commenting on foreign policy, and you have no business
What
commenting
has
on.
this? So now what you've done is this now third element. So now we're talking about Iran and
Because it would be the equivalent of people who don't believe in vaccines talking about medicine.
1 second. Again, now you've gone to vaccines, so now you're onto your 4th topic. So I think now is demonstrating that you're actually just a derailer. You don't actually have any. You don't really want to know my opinion about.
You guys are all brain dead retards.
And you've moved on to the 2020
All you,
election.
every single one of you are brain
You've
dead
now
retards.
moved on to the COVID
Especially you,
vaccine. And the
This guy's a
reason you've
full
done
troll,
that is
man.
because you're a fraud. Because you have the inability to read.
Most of you guys are
have
robots,
a
and the rest
lack
are
of ability
Republican
to
hack
read.
retards.
You are very retarded, actually. You're like the most retarded person I've ever had in the space. Like, to the point where I think your parents should have put you in special needs class, but they probably thought, you know what's the point of wasting our time sending this guy to school, sending him to special needs class, because that's just going to be a waste for all of us. Like, if this guy eats a school meal in school, that school meal is going to be taken from some other child who essentially will be given it and may be able to progress. Like, I think you're so low IQ that, if anything, you need to be put in a special place in order to help and support you, because you didn't have the right brain development to do so. So this is completely ridiculous. I was going to answer your question, but you've actually demonstrated that you're not a person who's here for a actual logical conversation, but instead you're here to derail the space, because the space about Iran, and now you've brought it up to 4 different topics that are irrelevant. You're literally saying, and this is your behaviors and your manners, you're saying you came up in the space, you were unable to read a tweet that I wrote, and you came up, you swore at myself, you swore at Beatrix, but then worse than that, when I said, do you apologize because your reasoning for swearing is your lack of ability to read, you said, well, I think I could apologize if your position on some other geopolitical position is right or wrong. So it just demonstrates your lack of ability, your lack of understanding, and your lack of being able to articulate. Someone said on chat, get this MAGA off the stage. He's not actually MAGA. He's actually a far left person. So this is what I mean. This is why when people are like, it's only MAGA, it's not. Some of these people are just off their rockers.
I don't claim him as one of mine, Solomon.
He is one of Joe's disciples. He's one of Joe's disciples, and so
I do not claim him as one of mine.
Yeah, hilarious.
He sounded like you, Jonah. He sounded like you, Jonah. Apart from the FF and the potty mouth and stuff. And Suleiman, please don't call him special needs child. Special needs children are beautiful. I volunteered with them and they're lovely. They're adorable. They're not like that little retard that came out.
Yeah, but the thing is, special needs children are brilliant. I have I have like a cousin who's special needs. But that being said, one of the things with this a person who is special needs, and although we love them, is that they actually don't have the appropriate brain development. So my cousin, as an example, is like swearing all the time, and he's not harmful when he swears. He's just swearing. So this is the behavior that this individual doesn't have the right brain development. He's not able to articulate what he said.
Can I add some context to the logical conversation you just were having? Is that possible?
Yeah, go for it,
Jay
Jack. Go ahead.
Art, you've waited really patiently. Go ahead and let me go and block that guy that was just up here. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I agree with Simon. I've been following Simon for a bit. He mentions obviously the FIC, MIC, that whole kind of situation, going multipolar. All that stuff lines up. I see that happening. However, and I do agree with Cyrus as well on the other side. I think there's a disconnect. So I don't know where Israel lies going forward. Clearly, the kind of position that they had prior before, where things were being kind of situated in the Middle East as a proxy, building out the greater Israel and expanding out. They're still in Lebanon right now. That was obviously one of the places on their agenda. So they're bombing them out. So they haven't pulled away from that side of things. However, with Iran, clearly that's something that he had on the agenda for the last 10 something years or more. He's mentioned that. We know that was the regime change was a thing. The Shah got removed. We know the history behind that. I think the disconnect for me is the fact that if we're talking about Israel as a state, which is just a proxy, and has all the different tech companies running out of there, a whole bunch of money for MIC being funded through there, Netanyahu just being a puppet of that. But I'm looking at the Zionists as an overall, they also control the FIC as well. They're in the major corporations. I mean, Larry Fink, Larry Ellison, we could go down the list. We could look at the board members on these different corporation companies. We could even look at, so if you're talking about from a Jewish supremacy, Zionist kind of concept, it's not Israel, and AIPAC obviously is tied to that. But so for Simon, if you're saying I agree with you, but do you agree that the Zionist kind of situation is also on the FIC side, from that side of it? And the last question is, if FIC is going to take over everything and I guess remove MIC out of the equation and make it multipolar, where does Israel fall in that? What happens to them in the equation? Do they just kind of dissipate? They build out another situation over there. They don't continue to try to expand out. They just become null and void, even though they're bombing out Lebanon. That's why I agree with Cyrus on a lot of the points he makes, because I'm just trying to see from what you're saying, where does Israel fall in place into this equation? I'll end there.
So in my map of the world, Israel historically has been a misaligned node, and they are so historically, whenever you want to justify war, religion has always been the best tool used by power, and so whether it be radical Christians via Christian crusaders, whether it be ISIS through radicalized Muslims, or whether it be Zionists through radicalized Jews. You use Israel around about the exact time when the West needed Russia's oil as well as Middle Eastern oil, which was the same year of the Balfour Declaration, in order to set up the justification for destabilization. And those radicalized religious people actually think they're fighting a different battle to those that they work for. And those that they work for really don't give two shits about the religious battle. They're just using religion in order to galvanize and recruit an army. And they set the agenda. And so Israel has always served a purpose of destabilizing the Middle East as part of a neoliberal model that effectively benefits very, very wealthy elites that come from some of them might call themselves Zionists, some of them are Jewish and have an allegiance to Israel, but many of them are from legacy empires, whether it be Dutch oligarchs, whether it be British elites. whether it be other monarchies. They all have different models of where they obtain their wealth, and wealth changes over time. It's not concentrated in Israel or one religious group. And so there is definitely a tribal power struggle, and it's undeniable to not connect Jewish history and financial history. But remember who made the money out of the Jews building the banking system? It was Christian elites that wanted to circumvent their religion usury requirements and carve out a corner that would allow them to engage in usury. So they partnered in a marriage of convenience with various Jewish interests.
Yeah, I disagree with that part. That last part you just said, I disagree with. And I can explain really quick. Like, I agree with everything you said except for the last part. So if you go back into history and you go back to where the money's coming from the top, it actually, if you look at the black nobility family, from the Medici family, from Orsini, I don't want to go into conspiracy lane, but I'm just saying that a lot of the money that you're referring to from the Christian side, and this is just what it is. I don't care what people think. You can do your own research. People want to talk about back in the, I guess you could call them crypto Jews, or you could call them, I forgot what the context they called it back then. It was a different name where Jewish people were Ashkenazi converted to Catholic, that converted to Christian, and those people connected and intertwined with the Jewish lobby or with the Ashkenazi side of it. And they had bloodline side of that, and they worked together in cahoots. So in the long run, and like I said, if you look at it from both sides, from the top down, even from the Vatican now, if you want to get real, I guess you want to go from that context, even if you want to talk about Saudi Arabia, their bloodlines in Turkey, who that's actually tied to, even if you want to go into UAE and then talk about who their bloodlines is actually tied to, then you'll see that it's still going to be tied to Jewish supremacy. No matter what they front as a religion that they are, if you really know the history, you know that's still who controls,
Yeah, I
and still
do I
controls
do
both
know I
sides.
do know the history, but I also study the global distribution of wealth, and there is wealth, and the average, the average Jewish wealth relative to other religion is higher. But in terms of 16 million people or whatever we are to believe, they do not control all the money. There is Chinese wealth, there is Indian wealth, there is Muslim wealth, if you're talking about religions, there is Christian wealth, there is
I
previous
agree.
empires, there are monarchies,
But
and it's
money
not
and
all
power are two
Jews.
totally different things, though. Money and power are two totally different. Also, your theory has to explain, how does the Gaza genocide benefit the quote unquote Christian elite, or the the Anglo elite in the United
How
States?
was America
How does
created,
that how
Cyrus?
does that
How was
genocide help
America
us?
created, Cyrus?
They
No,
call them
but you always
conversos, by the
answer me
way,
with
conversos.
questions, Simon. You
Well,
never
I'll
answer me
answer it
direct.
then. If you prefer me to
I
answer
want
it,
to
I'll
do.
answer
I
it.
want a
But
clear answer. That's not a
sure.
question. Like
Okay.
90% of your replies to me are questions.
Yes. Okay. Well, I can ask you or I can answer. I don't mind either way. America was founded by weaponizing the Christian faith and Europeans genociding and engaging in ethnic cleansing of the natives. And they used it in order to conquer land. And they've done that in Australia. They did that in Canada. They did that across the world time and time again. Settler colonialism and genocide has been, for the last 500 years, the Anglo-European and American strategy in order to acquire resources and conquer land. And everything that Israel is doing today is no different to what Europeans, British, Dutch, Spanish, Portuguese, and Americans have been doing for the last 500 years.
But you cannot equate the rule of law 500 years ago to our post World War II, Geneva Conventions, never again, no more
Are you
genocide. So
sure?
it's
Are
all the
you
same.
sure?
It's all the same, right?
Are you
The
sure?
world the world has not changed in 500
How
years.
are you saying that America has followed international law post World War II, Geneva Convention, ever since World War II?
No, they haven't.
Are you not? Are you telling me that you didn't
Yeah,
watch
but
it? Are
we're
you
not
telling
committing
me that you
genocide in
didn't?
Gaza. But
Are you
we're
telling
not
me
committing
that the
genocide in
whole?
Gaza. We're the superpower, so we have the double standard, right? And we're using our
Yeah,
vetoes. The
but now
United
you're
States
changing the
use,
argument.
but
I'm
look,
saying
there's been.
now
Let
you're
me
agreeing
explain.
with me. Now you're agreeing with me
I'm
then,
not
yeah?
agreeing with you. I'm
So
not
now you're
agreeing with
agreeing
you.
with me that
There
America
have been
has always
100.
followed,
Look,
and
this
Israel
is
is the
just a
perfect
jambalaya soup
example.
you're making to confuse people.
Israel
Look, Simon,
is the
it's very
perfect
clear.
example of how the last 500 years of the European, American, Anglo American relationship has always worked with settler colonialism, genocide, ethnic cleansing, rape, pillage, stealing, and resource acquisition through crimes against humanity. There is nothing different about what happened in Gaza to what has always backed the dollar, the pound, and the Dutch guilder.
Yeah, so the Israelis are not to blame. The Zionist regime is not to blame. It's the
Israelis are
technocrats.
absolutely to blame. They are
It's the
committing crimes
technocrats.
against humanity.
It's the
That's not what he's
It's the
saying.
Anglo supremacists, right?
There's a
It's our
disconnect.
Israel
policies.
is absolutely to blame. Israel is committing crimes against humanity, and the British Empire constructed Israel in order to radicalize Jews and create a carve out for their crimes against humanity with plausible deniability so that they could test technology, they could destabilize a region, and then Israel started to build its own sovereign
But who did
power.
that with Britain? Who did that with Great Britain? Who was architected that with the
The
finances,
Rothschild, the
right?
There are no
Rothschilds,
resources in Israel for us to
the
colonize.
Rothschilds and the crown.
Yeah, yes, and there's another country that people forget about, and I gotta remember the exact name. Is it Denmark? I forgot. I gotta find out. Then there's a Sweden. There's a quiet family that's also was part of the equation for that whole situation. But when I'm the disconnect for you guys is for
Well,
me
the
is that
the Swedish central bank was the first, then the Dutch, then the British, then the
yeah,
Fed.
there was that's correct. And there's a family Pacific. I'm not in front of my computer to look up the name, but there's a Pacific family was quietly playing both sides during that whole
That's
situation
been every
with
single
Germany.
war. Empire has funded
Yes, I
both
agree.
sides of
Yes.
every war.
But
And everything that
But
Cyrus calls a conspiracy theory is only
I
because
agree
he
with
can't
you.
imagine that it still happens today when it always
Oh,
has happened this way.
I agree with everything
see,
you said.
colonial
Only thing,
powers go to
hold on,
expand to get
real quick,
resources.
Cyrus.
There's no resources in Israel. It's a Messianic endeavor and it's a Jewish supremacist endeavor. It has nothing to do with the Anglo world, right? It's because of the
That's not
pervasive
true. That's
influence
So
not
there's
true. That's not true.
of the banking cartels.
There's no
They
Jews in
kick out
America
Christian
though.
villages.
There's no
They're
history of
destroying
Christian and
Christian villages.
Jewish.
They are
That's not
destroying
true.
Christian villages and setting it ablaze. So there's no
So
Anglo-Christian angle.
you
There's no
innocent Americans and
Anglo-Christian
innocent
angle here.
Christians, you were fooled by the Jews. And if it wasn't
Sir,
for the Jews,
you're fooling everyone
everything,
to
and if it
think
wasn't
that
for the
Israel's
Jews,
not
The
responsible.
American empire would be great. It would be ethical. It would be following the rule of law. You know,
I'm not saying any of that. I'm
it's
not saying
only
any of that.
because of this pesky Jeffrey Epstein that we're willing to do a genocide now, even though America has supported every genocide and covered up for it in
So,
history.
Simon.
We've
If you want
covered
to talk,
every genocide in history. That's a big
hold on, Simon.
statement.
United Nations
The
Security
Rwanda,
Council.
the Rwanda genocide,
In
the
the United
Bosnian
Nations
genocide.
Security
You know, we wanted
Council,
to stop that genocide.
the British, the
You're,
French, the Americans, the Russians, and later the Chinese have that has been the order that you talk about, that rules-based order. You know, that United Nations that was set up to create the IMF, to create the World Bank, and to rape, pillage, steal from countries and get them into debt dependency so that the money could go back to the private corporate interests in America to boost the stock market. The model that has always existed, but you were sold a lie and a dream that you were the ethical people that were going around the world and trying to civilize those pesky
but I don't
natives.
believe that. I don't think we're ethical. So you're just for you, it's black and white. I think there's corporate corruption, and states act in very nasty ways to gain power. My point is, there's no power to gain from creating a colony in Israel and the Levant. There's no oil there. There's nothing of significance there. This was
It's a price of
Destabilize.
oil.
This
Israel
was a
was a
Zionist Jewish
destabilization
supremacist
campaign so
endeavor.
that
This
you
was an
could prevent.
Ashkenazi endeavor.
No, hold
This
on,
has nothing to do.
Cisco,
It has nothing to do with America, right? You're trying to conflate. You're trying to conflate the two expressions.
The whole
Corporate element.
point
You
of
need to collect
Israel was to
intelligence.
make sure that Egypt and there could be no pan-Arab unification around the vast resources in the Middle East. Why do you think Sykes-Picot was set up in the first place? To make sure that there was always strategic religious tension, and Israel, if you ask anyone in the Middle East, they'll tell you they associate it with America and American power and
Egypt
British
could even
power
be
and imperial power.
Egypt and Syria could even take on Israel, a tiny power. How are they going to? You know how far they are from the oil
Exactly. Now
resources.
you say
You
my
don't know your
point. Well, what do you
geography.
mean
The oil
Israel?
is in Iran, it's in Saudi Arabia, it's in Kuwait.
Egypt has
You
been
don't know
like
your geography.
5,000 years
Egypt is in
imperial
Africa.
power.
Egypt is in Africa. Egypt is in Africa. It's
Yes.
nowhere near the GCC. It's nowhere near Saudi Arabia,
What
not
are you
near Iran.
talking about? You're saying,
You don't know what you're talking about, Simon. You were so off base.
hold on, hold on.
This is not. This is not a
Cyrus, are
You're
technical.
you
telling me
okay? Are you
that
okay in the head,
Egypt
Cyrus?
in North Africa is nowhere near the GCC or the Middle East?
They're
even
like
though they
very
share a
close.
It's
They're
border
very
with
close.
Palestine.
They're like
they
right
are of
there.
insignificance. They could not even impose on Israel. They
So
lost the
so
war.
a
3 countries on one.
5,000
So
year.
they're gonna roll in and take over
So
Iraq and
so the
Iran. Like
Nasser,
they're
the
gonna just
Nasser Pan-Arab
there's no
unification,
threat.
taking down the British
That's
Empire, the
Zionist
Suez Canal,
propaganda.
that was nothing.
You're
Egypt
you're
took down the
pushing
British
Hasbara and
Empire, that was
propaganda.
nothing.
You're a
They,
Hasbara machine. It's nonsense.
you guys are just going back and forth right now. It is a disconnect because Simon, you're right, but then you're also missing what he's saying. If you go back, you talk about this. You know who the Fed Reserve who
I
created it.
know
You
the
know
history of
you
banking. I
know
know
who.
the history of
I know you.
Israel.
I know.
It's not like I don't know
Hold on.
it or the
I didn't say
lobbies.
I didn't. I respect and listen to you, so I know you know. I listen to what you say all the time. I know you know about that. You're very astute with that. What I'm saying is that if you're gonna, it's kind of like I don't think you're gaslighting it, but if you're taking the significance of that, what happened there, well, obviously Andrew Jackson was able to push them out, and like you said, the Anglo-Saxon side, I disagree with Cyrus. They were a part of this. They were in cahoots. They agreed with that. They were
They
they
were a part
pushed.
of this. I
They were
agree with
yes,
that. They were part of
100%.
it.
Like they're
I agree with
100% part
that.
of it. Like what are we talking?
I agree with that. I'm not
We
denying
can't
it.
deny that. So I agree with Simon that it's not just the Jewish supremacy side of it. There's people who are playing in cahoots. Now, do I think the Jewish supremacy is at the top? Yes, I do. I think that they control the scheme. I think they have people that sit at the table with them, including Indian, including Chinese, including Arab, including Anglo-Saxon. All these people are sitting at the table together. Who's sitting at the head of the table and who has the most power and control on the finance side, even from the top down? Because even if you want to go down from the Vatican down, it's still going to be tied to the Ashkenazi
Yeah, but
side. If you
there's
look
no
at
Chinese, there's no Russians at those tables, man. It's the
that's
Western
bullshit.
world, and
That's
there's the
not true.
elite.
That's not
There's the
true,
corporate elite
Cyrus.
of the West. There's no
That's
China.
clearly not.
There's no one
Of
from the
course there is.
CCP. There's no one from
Of
the
course there
CCP.
is.
These are so
They
you don't
just did
understand how
20.
world
They just went.
great
I
powers work.
do.
These are
I
competing
do. They
powers. They
just
don't work
they just
together.
went to China.
Cyrus, let him finish,
They just
please. Let JR
they
speak, because yeah, go
they
ahead,
just
JR.
went to China with some of the top CEOs of America and a large abundance of finance and money, the most powerful people, which a lot of them being tied to Ashkenazi control, just went to China to ask for, for whatever they could get from them in terms of negotiation. And what Simon is saying is correct because
My
they're
point
all
exactly.
working
Why would you
together.
negotiate with yourself? They're different opposing sides. This is so clear.
Cyrus,
So China's trying to rise.
Why was Hong
What are
Kong
you
set
talking
up?
about?
Again, you're coming at me with more questions. Your whole worldview is so flawed. It's not
Why
corporations
was Hong
leading
Kong
the
set up?
policy. It doesn't matter why it was
Answer
set
that
up.
question.
It
Yes, it does matter.
makes no difference if it's a
It's
financial hub.
incredibly relevant to the history of
Yeah,
It does
banking.
it's
The
matter.
British, the
it's
British
during it
and
was set up by
Chinese
the Brits while they
relationship.
dominated when they raped and pillaged China. It was set up as a form of control over the mainland. So, but that's outside of the point. The point is
No,
when
no, no.
these
You
powers
said
when
that
these powers
you
gain
said that the Chinese
when they
never
get
sits down at the table. What's Hong Kong for?
the Chinese right now, their policy is not in cahoots with the U.S. Western hegemony. They're not in cahoots with shutting down the Strait of Hormuz.
So
Your whole
what happens
worldview
through
is sideways, man.
Hong
It's like
Kong
you're so off
financial
base.
system? You know
They're not.
HSBC. You know that bank that's
I have to be
on the
asking. You have
US
to
and
prove your
British stock
theory.
market.
See, your
What's that
theory
got
is
to
so
do with
out there.
China? Has that got anything
You
to
have
do
to
with it?
see. You have to prove your theory. See, your theory is so
I can
out there.
prove it with facts. I can
No,
tell you
no,
how the
you've gone on
relationships happen.
you go on 2 hour diatribes and they still prove no substance. There is nothing
That's
that proves
rich coming from you,
with no
Cyrus.
historical
Cyrus,
context.
why don't you just admit that you're out of your depth on this topic? You have an
I'm
academic
not.
understanding.
You have no
I
depth.
understand what you understood because I
You have
was at
Hasbara. That's it.
university and I understand the academic theories that I was taught by the banksters. And I was a good little boy regurgitating the types of theories that you come up with. And then I found out how the world really worked. You know how? Through real world life experience.
Through John Perkins, who was recruited by the NSA, and there
What?
was sexual
You think my
espionage.
entire
And yeah,
theory is off one
that's your
book?
that's what you said. I mean, everything you
I
say
said if
mimics
anyone wants to start at
the
the
corporate
basics, that's one
jackals.
good book to start with.
That's a way to build your
The Hong
house of
Kong
logic
point
on
was
quicksand. That is
you
a
didn't answer that
foundation built
question.
on quicksand.
You didn't answer the question he asked. Why was Hong Kong formed? How was it formed? How does that connect to USA in the
Yeah,
corporations?
and by the way,
How
do you
why
know the Sassoon family?
they
You know the
sold it out
Sass.
to they sold out manufacturing to China literally to increase profits. They're working intertwined together with finances. They do trade amongst each other. They've been doing business for decades now. How are they not integrated with the other countries financially? That
Hey,
doesn't make any
have you heard of
sense.
the Sassoon family? You know who the
Okay,
Sassoon family was?
Cyrus, this is, and let me just go to somebody else. Yeah, I feel like I'm just getting bored of this conversation, to be honest. Let's go to Joe. Bring a different voice into this conversation. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, Britain has always used forward operating bases, and when they do use operating bases, just like they did in India, just like they did in Hong Kong, just like they did in Israel. They have always used the people of that land and not themselves, typically, in order to control that area. Right? This has been British strategy ever since Britain was an empire, and this is what they've always done. Right? So why do you think Israel's any different than what UK did in India or did in Hong Kong? Right? They need bases in order to control that land. They need forward bases, and those forward bases, the ones that Britain set up, okay, because it was not America that set up Israel, it was Britain. The one that Britain set up, just like they did in India, just like they did in Hong Kong, they use the people of that land to make it seem like they're the ones in control in order to manipulate the situation and to destabilize regions when they have to collect intel and to have a forward attack area. That's what they've always done. I don't know why you think this one's different.
Joe,
There's nothing to gain here.
we also set up
Geographically, it's
UAE,
irrelevant.
Joe.
That's why we did it for Saudi Arabia with the GCC. That's exactly why we have those vassal states. Israel makes no sense.
And
to
by the way,
implant
Cyrus,
hold on, let me explain.
Cyrus, we
You don't bring Ashkenazi
we
Jews
also set up
from Europe.
America. We also set up America, and we left our central bank there for you. And you thought you had a different system. We
You didn't
just put
set
our
up
system in
America.
America
They escaped your system. America was set up to fight the British system
and left the central
the
bank
very,
there. And left the central bank
the
there.
very corrupt. Yeah, but those are the remnants. That's why we need to abolish the Federal Reserve System, right?
And that's
Because it
why
was
you
the
still
corrupt.
got it today.
Yeah, and we're trying to get rid of it, right? And we need our politicians to do that.
Who's trying to get rid of
Who's trying to
it?
get
Trump,
rid of it?
And
Who's
your
trying to get rid
worldview
of
is
it?
that the
Is Trump taking on
and
the
your
deep
worldview
state?
is that
There is no hope,
your
Suleiman,
worldview
with
is don't
Cyrus,
vote. The
because
technocrats have
he'll
won.
never
There
shut up and
is
listen
the
to anyone.
Okay, guys. I want to go to Rush. Go ahead, Rush. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Soleimani.
It's 1 second,
I just
Suleiman.
oh, Soleiman, I'm so sorry, buddy. And I appreciate you guys having me in this space. I mean, I'm coming from this perspective as someone that voted for Trump 6 times, and I supported his agenda. And yeah, I agree. He's not doing his agenda. He's completely sold us out to the technocrats, to the Wahhabi Muslims, to the Israelis, all kinds of people. The American people are being sold out to, but the American people are waking up, and it is causing this awakening in America where we are pushing towards taking back our nation. And I think Israel knows that. That's the reason the Jerusalem Time puts out articles as the West falls, we're moving to Asia. And when they say Asia, they mean India. That's the reason they've been propping up India in our country for so long and propping up Indian CEOs and using DEI, ESG-backed social governance scores to take our corporations and make all of them globalist entities. And America is suffering from this, just like every other nation. And I think the evil fact that people want to demonize America and say America was stolen from land. We have given the indigenous people of this land millions of acres. They still have their tribes. They didn't even know what this land was. They were nomadic people, and we built a nation, one of the greatest nations the world.
You sound
ever
like
seen,
Israel.
obtuse to that, and we have brought the world, lots of agriculture. We ended global slavery. America did, and now we've almost ended global hunger. And now slavery is coming back. And yes, Israel's subverting America, but Israel's subverting the world. Name me outside of Iran and Cuba, where a central bank isn't. Every nation has problems. Every nation is being subverted, and America is not evil.
Did you really just
to me,
justify the
foreigners that
genocide
want
of the
Americans to
natives
be evil.
as you were trying to help them and you were trying to
He
civilize?
did. He definitely did.
Okay, that's a very interesting interpretation. That's exactly what Israel does, by the way.
That hasn't happened in the last 200 years, Simon. You're using Israeli propaganda.
I'm not using Israeli propaganda. I'm undoing your American propaganda about your history.
So you don't think it's a mystery that only Western nations are being invaded by this mass immigration? You don't think Robert Kalergi wrote a plan about how Western nations would be invaded? It would cause Western civilization to collapse, and and from that fire, Israel would create the Greater Israel Project. I mean, it's obvious what they've done to Western civilization. It's obviously what they're doing to us. Yes, they're using us and using our military, but it doesn't mean that we're complacent in this. The American people are against this.
So
And
so
the
why was
American people
why
do
were
not
why
want
was
this.
America doing
Simon,
everything that
one
Israel was
second.
doing before Israel?
Simon, can you explain to
Why
me
is the
why?
Wahhabi Muslims write a
Can you
fatwa to bring us
explain?
to the Middle
Can you
East?
explain to
I don't
me
ever hear any of you call out the Wahhabi
Of
if it's
Muslims,
course
only
I
Qatar,
of
happening?
course
Kuwait,
I
Saudi
of course
Arabia.
I call out
Yeah,
ISIS and Al
of course
Qaeda
you
for
do.
representing Western interest.
No, not Al Qaeda. The Saudi Arabian government, the
You mean the
UAE
Saudi
government.
Arabian government? You
They
mean
are
the Saudi Arabian?
complacent.
You mean the Saudi
Yes.
Arabian government that the CIA regime changed and assassinated King Faisal in order
Oh
to
yeah,
set up
they have no
to
autonomy.
set up the Safari
American
Club so that you
supremacists.
could.
America just
You mean
controls the
the
world.
same one that set up the Safari Club so that the CIA, Mossad, and Saudi intelligence could groom Osama bin
So you're
Laden
telling me
and
the
take down the
Saudi
Twin
prince and Saudi
Towers?
royalty
That
have no
one, that
self
one.
autonomy?
And by the way,
The Saudi, along with the
how much
Israelis,
did the
took down the
US
Twin
stock
Towers
market?
of Mossad. They
How
didn't do that
much
by
did the US
themselves.
stock market make from the
You think the
wars that were
Saudis
created?
did it by themselves? You don't think
How
Israelis were
much
involved in the
did
Twin Towers?
American boomers of all backgrounds, atheist, Christian, and
Yes, we
Jewish,
spent trillions.
make?
We spent trillions of dollars, thousands
How
of
much did
lives.
America?
We spent trillions of U.S.
The
Yes,
dollars.
stock
We
and
market
made
didn't
who
rise
trillions
because
got
of the
that
of American
value?
wars.
debt.
Who got that
We
value?
increased the
Was it
Muslim
Israel?
population in this country by
And who got that
tenfold.
value?
And yes, it was because of
Who got
Israel.
that value? Who
Israel
made the
backed it the
money?
whole
Who made the
time.
money?
The stock market did not rise because of the wars.
Israelis, the
Absolutely did. That
bankers.
$10
No, it didn't.
trillion
It's because of
dollars,
global.
Not the Americans.
that trillion of dollars from war, all went into
Yes,
American
the bankers
contractors,
made that money.
and it boosted the U.S. stock market, and it
Who
created the
owns
demand.
BlackRock? So
I'm sorry,
Simon, who owns
the system
BlackRock?
you complain
Who
about,
owns
which
State Street?
you
Who
claim
owns
was set,
Vanguard,
the
Simon?
system that you
Who are the
complain
owners of
about
those
is the one
companies?
that was.
The executive board of those companies.
Can I talk? The system that you're complaining about, that I'm trying to reveal to you how it works, is the same system that you're claiming was created by the very same Jewish supremacists, according to you. But you're also saying it
No,
doesn't
they
benefit the
subverted
American stock
America and
market.
our economy. We built all those
Oh,
companies.
so
Americans
when
built
there's
those
something
companies.
good, you take
Ford
credit for it. When it's
industrialized.
bad, it's the Jewish supremacists.
Ford not only industrialized the revolution with his assembly line, he also wrote The International Jew, calling out Jewry because they were controlling Dodge and the vested interest
Okay,
in
now
Ford,
you understand
and were
why
preventing him
Palestine
to
was
give
created,
raises to
because
his
you wanted to
employees.
expel the Jews.
Americans have been fighting this the whole time. I don't see, what country are you from, Simon? Is your nation fighting this?
I'm from the creator of this whole mess, a terrorist country called the United Kingdom. But the thing is, I know my country's history, and I know the BS that I was taught.
A terrorist country called the United
Yes.
Kingdom. Yeah, I know the people that brought India railways and advanced agriculture.
Are you
for
Oh my God,
serious?
called genocidal evil people.
Whoa,
And their
1
entire
second.
government is full of
Rush. Listen, I'm the co-host. I'm going to tell you something. You go down that India line, right? You're going to trigger me. And I'm telling you, it's 12:30 at night. Don't big up anything that Great Britain did in India, because all they did was rape and pillage. I've been doing spaces on India for a long time. They looted that country. They destroyed it. Right? It was the wealthiest country of that region. They divided it, and they've left it still in turmoil with undecided parts like Kashmir to this day that nations fight over. So, when you talk history, American history, it reminds me, in fact, funnily enough, I was talking to somebody about this today, and it was an American who said something to me about British history and said, oh, I didn't know about the Balfour Declaration. And I said, listen, I studied history at college. I didn't know about the Balfour Declaration, because all I was taught at college, 2 years of history A level, was how great we were in World War II and how great Churchill was and how amazing the British Empire was. It's only after I left college and I started reading stuff that I realized the horrors that the British Empire committed. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is, Rush, I don't want you to think that anything that's said on this space is about the people, because I heard you say that the American people don't support it. We know that. Everybody on this panel knows that. right? The British people don't support what their government's done either. I don't, Simon doesn't, Suleiman doesn't, but we call out our governments. So when we say the Americans, we're literally talking about leadership across the board, and we're not talking about Republicans or Democrats, we're just talking general, and that's what we're talking about. Only governments, never the people. So I don't want you to think that, because I know you're new to this space. And the only other thing I'll ask is, please, I'm enjoying the discussion with you and Simon, but when you talk at the same time as him, we can't hear you.
Yeah, and
So I'll give the mic
can I
right
add
back.
something
Yeah, go
too?
ahead, Joa.
Because no one else
Go
is
ahead.
able to talk. A statement was made that, that minorities are coming into America and that's only happening to the West, blah, blah, blah. There is more Filipinos per capita in Israel than there are Indians in America, right? Just so you understand. So to make the
How many of them are
statement,
getting
to
citizenship?
make the statement,
How many of them are getting
to
citizenship?
make the statement that it
How
only
many are
happens to
getting
the
citizen,
West,
Joe?
why can't people shut up until someone's done, right? Have some fucking respect. Look, if there's Filipino people there and it's almost 3%, when there's only 1.6% Indians in America, and there's even less Muslims, not even 1%, but you guys keep saying we're being invaded, we're being invaded. Israel has the same problem. It's not the Jews doing it to America, like you just tried to make it seem.
That's a bad analogy, Joel.
How's it bad?
Yeah,
You just said it
Israel's
only
not giving
happens
those
to the
people
West.
I
citizenship.
could debunk that
Saudi
analogy
Arabia
easily.
is full of Pakistanis
Hey,
and
let
Indians. They're not giving any of them
Rush,
citizenship
Rush,
either.
one second. I'm going to come to you. Let Jart just say why the analogy wasn't great, and then I will come to you. You're going to speak after. Go ahead,
I could
Jart.
just
Yeah,
easily
I'm
debunk.
just saying the argument that was
Hold on,
made
Joel.
that it only
Hold on.
happens to the West because of the
Let me just
Jews is
debunk that real quick.
ridiculous.
Let me just debunk that real quick. So you're talking about percentages. That doesn't really factor into the power and control. The power and control consolidated in every aspect of America to the 1%. So if you look at who's on top of the actual financial ladder, it's Jews who like to look at themselves as what, a race and religion. And then you have Indians as second. That's just the numbers, right? And then you have a bunch of Asian groups under that. The Europeans or the Anglo-Saxons are moving down that financial chart. Black people, of course, are always been on the bottom. And then, obviously Hispanics are moving up some because they're getting what? They built business up, they built wealth up, they got power in politics, they got money behind lobby groups, and they were able in a small percentage to be able to take control of the financial side. So you can't go and say, oh, it's just a small percentage. And then to what he's saying, he is correct about Western countries or Western side of things going into a decline. That's a part of the agenda. If you read documentation, that's what they're planning on doing. Clearly, if they're going to do a multipolar setup, which they're doing, the power is going to shift out around the border. Now, of course, USA still has AI, they still have
Okay,
corporations,
so
they still have,
okay, cool. Thanks for
but,
that, Joe. Let's
but,
go.
but,
Go
one
ahead,
last
wrap your
thing. I'm
point
gonna
up.
land right.
It's just you're taking it off track of the conversation.
Yeah,
I'm
when you
just saying.
do,
Well, these guys are talking for 20 minutes. I
I
just want
need
to say
to.
one
It's not
thing.
you've
So
taken it off the track of the
Bro,
conversation. They were having a debate
I
about
spoke less than
I'm
citizenship
not.
you.
then, and now
I'm
it's
not
totally
talking about
different.
you. I'm gonna land here. I'm just making the point
Alright,
to what
quickly,
you just
land.
said. So I'm gonna land right here. I promise. So all I'm saying is that the consolidation of wealth in percentage, and he's right about the dissipation of Western countries. That is happening right now. It's not helping the American people. We're clear on that.
Cool. Okay, go ahead, Rush.
Can I finish, Simon?
Oh, did he
So just
interrupt
push it
you?
back
I
to you.
thought because it's like this guy's waiting to even respond. He's like,
Yeah.
go ahead
Yeah,
then.
Look,
yeah.
it's
Thank you.
normal.
Yeah.
It's
So yes, Israel is full of. I thought he said Rush. I'm sorry.
No, Joe.
he
Israel
didn't
is
realize he
full
interrupted
of.
me, not you. That's
Yeah,
why
go ahead,
he
Joe.
went
Go
to
ahead,
you.
Joe. I didn't know because I know
Yeah.
you interrupted, and then it
Yeah.
just took
Look,
it off track
No,
completely
I
from
was
the actual
interrupted. I
conversation.
got cut off and muted, and then multiple people have spoken. I
Beatrix
got cut
Cool.
off
stopped
by
you
That's
guys
fine.
from
Simon.
talking because you were yelling over people. Then she called on me, right? And then I got interrupted.
I did, and I'm
Yeah.
coming straight to you after that, Russ.
Yeah, I'll
Go
go
ahead,
to
Joe.
Yeah,
Joe.
look, everyone here, I think no one would deny that the fact that America is set up as a, I don't know what you would call something that's like an oligarchy, but it's not held in the hands of the few. It's whoever has the most, whoever puts up the most money, right? Politicians are for sale, lobbies are for sale, and whoever spends the money wins. Well, when you have a group of people, that is a small group of people where their average net worth is 100 and I don't know 150,000, something like that, 130,000, and the very next group underneath that is 45,000. There's a huge discrepancy there. So yes, they are overrepresented because they have a lot of wealth, because they've been involved in banking, and banking is the sector that creates the most money. So when you create a government, when you're for sale, right? Then people with money take over. That is a problem, right? That's why I was so for Bernie Sanders way back in the day when he was against Citizens United. Citizens United is the problem. If it was Christians that had the most money, they would be the ones controlling it. If it was Muslims that had the most money, they would be the ones controlling it. If that is the issue, people with more money have more representation in America because that's the way the government is set up. That's what capitalism is, my friend. So every time someone goes, "Oh, those crazy leftist socialists," think again when you come up here and then talk about things that would be anti-capitalist, because that's what it is.
Go ahead, Rush. Jump in.
Well, who prints the money, Joa? Who controls the America Fed and all
The
the
banks
other
that are all
global
the
Fed?
banks that are all
The
listed on the
banks.
U.S. stock
So
market.
who are the boards?
Was J.P.
Who's on the
Morgan
boards
Rush?
of
Was
the
J.P.
banks?
Morgan a Jew?
Why do you guys
Hey,
have to
Joe, you
interrupt
gotta
me?
let
I
him
was
finish.
acting up
Like,
as
You
I
asked
think
me.
you're just being
You
long-winded.
literally asked me a question.
Okay,
You
yeah,
literally
that's
asked me a
rush.
question.
That's a flaw. Like whenever you're talking, don't
You
ask
ask
the question.
questions too. You ask questions too, and I haven't been able to respond. You said, "Oh, Israel has immigrants also." No, Israel has temporary workers. That if they don't work like slaves, they immediately have their visa pulled and they're sent back to their host country, just like Saudi Arabia, just like UAE, just like Qatar.
Just like America.
You got to keep interrupting me. No, America actually has pathways to citizenships. Most
We have
H-1Bs
temporary visas as well,
have
my
anchor
friend.
babies. You can't help yourself, can you, Joa?
You're saying fallacies. America has temporary worker
I'm not
visas.
saying fallacies. So we don't have a pathway to citizenship.
We
through
don't have
having an anchor
temporary
baby
worker
in this
visas,
country?
Rush?
Yes, but they can
Oh,
just
okay.
have a
Thank you.
child and
Thank you
stay
for
here.
finally saying yes.
And
Thank you.
most illegal immigration in this country, well, around 45% of the legal immigration in the United States comes from visa overstays. So yes, just because someone came here on a visa doesn't mean that they're not abusing our system also. The problem is only Western nations are being told that they must take this burden. They must take the burden from the Middle East. You have the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society and other NGOs pushing this massive wave into the West that is not natural. It's not natural for the #1 boy's name in the capital city of London to be Muhammad. And all this happened within 60 years. All Western nations changed their immigration policy in the 1960s. For America, it was the Hart-Celler Act. And can you imagine Emmanuel Celler and who his backers were? The AJC, now known as AIPAC, that opened the floodgates of America. And within
One
10
at a
years, they
time.
opened the
Can
floodgates
you tell me
every
how
other
Mohammed
state.
is the most popular name in UK? Where'd you get that from?
You can look it up. Not in the UK, in London. In the city of London, Muhammad is the most popular
Look it up from
boy's
where?
name. Google it.
You mean a website that you
What-
would say is controlled by Jews, right?
I will throw my receipt in the bottom after I'm done. But I love how you
So
can't
so
help but
six
interrupt
so
me,
six
Simon.
6% of UK is Muslim. How is Muhammad the biggest name?
In London, because of massive invasion and the numbers and statistics that we're basing many of these things off don't truly factor in
Rush,
illegal
I
immigration.
think you're
In the
not.
United States, there's over 100 million
Rush.
illegals in this country.
So let's say hypothetically you're right. Right? Let's give you that. Let's say Muhammad is the most common name. Does that mean that there's more Muslims, or what's the kind of inference from that point?
The British people are being eradicated out of their homeland.
No,
That's
okay.
the
This
interference
is
that
a leap.
I'm
You're not
making.
understanding the question.
Rush, India just kicked all the British people out of their country that brought them agriculture.
You're just talking. Can you just answer the question again? Because I like you're making a leap. You're not understanding the logical question I'm asking you. If Muhammad is the most common name within the UK, are you inferring? Let me try and help you because I think you don't understand the question. Are you inferring that Muslims are having more babies than anyone else?
No, I'm inferring that we're bringing in an army invasion of birthing age Muslims into the UK, into Germany, into every other Western country.
Again, you're not understanding.
After we were told,
Rush, you're not
not to have
understanding
children,
Rush, you're not
they told us
understanding.
not to have children.
Rush,
It was
you're
bad
not
for the
understanding the point.
environment.
Who's they?
Rush, you're not understanding the point again. Let me explain to you what you're doing. It's a logical fallacy. You're saying, guess what? Muhammad is the most common name. And then you think, guess what? I'm not creating any inference from that. That just means there's an invasion. That is illogical. And I'll explain to you why. And this is why, again, academia is really important. So it could be the case that Muhammad is the most common name, but actually there isn't a large number of Muslims in the country. For example, and let me just give it to you so I can teach you the basics. So let's say we've got 100 people, right? We've got 100 people, 2 Muslims, 98 non-Muslims, right? So 2 Muslims, 98 Christians. Each one of those Christians, as an example, let's say they give their children different names, and then the 2 Muslims give their children the same name, you would say, guess what? Muslim is the most common name. Well, yeah, it is the most name, but it doesn't mean that there's a lot of Muslims. If you look at it, it's only 2 Muslims out of 98. It's 2% in this scenario. And so when I asked you that question, while I was asking,
So every Muslim names their child Muhammad?
so this is a very important point. So now so you understand the logical fallacy of your statement, right? So I'm glad you understood it now. Now, let me just, Alex, explain.
If I could clarify very quickly.
No, Rush, no, you can't. I'm going to explain to you because you clearly have a lack of understanding, so I'm educating you. So now coming back to it, whether you said every Muslim, do they have the same name? So it's a very good question, because what you should be doing if you actually were a researcher, rather than regurgitate some of the probably viral, you probably saw a tweet that had an image on there and then you related. That's basically what's happened, because you've clearly not researched this. So if you actually researched it, what you'll find is that Muslims don't have the highest foreign, not even not even native. Muslims don't have the highest foreign birth rate amongst men, amongst women. The highest foreign birth rate in the UK for men is Indian, and for women is also Indian. For men, it was Romanian up until a few years ago, and then Indians took over. Now, what happens with Muslims is the reason why the percentages show a different story, and this is why percentages is more important than Muslims, the most common name, is actually, yeah, there is a large number of Muslims who do put the word Muhammad before their name. So what will happen is they want to call the kid, as an example, Azim. Azim is a name, and then they'll say Muhammad Azim or Muhammad something, and they believe that by putting the word Muhammad before it, it's like some kind of like spiritual blessing. So once again, if you look at it, this is why we don't say Muhammad is the most common name. And anyone I see that, I always say, look, these people clearly are just regurgitating what someone's told them. They don't understand data, they don't understand information, they've not researched it themselves. Because if you researched it, what you'd be looking at is, okay, there's mass immigration. Is there mass immigration to the UK? Okay, yeah, there is actually. I agree with that. How much immigration is in the UK in the last 5 years? Okay, there's been 1 million people entered the UK in the last 5 years. That's quite a lot. Which countries are this is how you do research, Rush. So I'm helping you out because this is what I did. I didn't say, oh, guess what? I saw a viral tweet saying Muhammad, and that's where it is. So where is this immigration coming from? Okay, so in the last 5 years, we had 1 million, sorry, actually more than 1 million. We had 1 million Indians come into the UK. We had 350, this is the top 3, 350,000 Chinese and 330,000 Nigerians. Are any of those 3 Muslim countries? No, they're not. So mass immigration clearly doesn't come from that. Okay, but what about before that? So then you look at it and say, okay, what's the biggest birth rate? Because, you know, the claim is by some, the most births are happening from Muslim countries. And then it is actually, the birth is Indian by both male and female when you look at foreign population. So that's how you do it. You don't be like, oh, guess what? I saw a viral tweet. It said Muhammad. So therefore, you know, there's an image on there, and therefore Muhammad is it. Because that doesn't demonstrate what the actual data is. But go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. I put the BBC article where it talks about it, and yes, I said specifically the city of London, and the reason for that is because all of the ethnic Englanders have all ran from the cities. The exact same thing has happened across Europe and here in America.
Ross, I literally live in London. I'm telling you, it's not true. I live in London.
So the demographics of London haven't changed over the past 60 years. You yourself sound like an immigrant to London.
What's the percentage of
Shut up! I'm born in London. I'm not a freaking immigrant, okay? And yes, the demographics have changed, but it's
that you have another dialect other than speaking English. You don't sound like a native.
Oh yeah,
British person.
okay. So I went for listen. I speak English. I'm born in England. I have a British accent. I spent 2 years in the Northeast going to college. So don't be an idiot. You sound like a racist Islamophobe, if you don't mind me saying. Let me tell you. No, don't interrupt me, Rush. I've had enough of your rhetoric, right? I'm going to give this mic right back to Suleiman after I've finished with you, because I've had enough of you. I live in London. The demographics changed. Yes. Do you know what? A ton of Eastern Europeans came in, but you don't mind about those because they're white-skinned, right? And then a ton of Indians came in. Suleiman just gave you the statistics of the Indians that are coming in. Do you know under
Rishi? That's the problem. And even in...
Yeah, do you know under Rishi Sunak, they made it easier? Like you've got the H-1Bs. We made fast-track visas for Indians to be able to come in. Right? Do you know that? But no, that doesn't matter to you because they're not Muslims, because it's got to be about the Muslims. You sound like a
No, I'm
retard,
against
Rosh, and I
all
didn't want to be
immigration. I'm
cruel
against.
to you. Oh, yeah, well, that's why you didn't go off on any other immigration. He
I
just gave you
called
the
out all
stats
of
for
them. You
Indians
guys
and
just get
everything
offended by
else.
me bringing up
And
the
you
name
called me a
Muhammad.
frigging
I
immigrant.
called
And
out
I'm as British
Indians.
as you
I called out.
get. Listen, I'm giving it back to Suleiman.
Okay, Rush, what percentage of Muslims are in London?
I'm an American, so I
Rush,
don't
what
know that.
percentage
I don't know
of
that
what
percentage.
percent you don't know, so you're ignorant of
I
it.
don't know
So
that percentage.
again, it
Well,
shows
so
the
what
point.
percentage?
Okay, so you're ignorant of it. So this is hilarious. So you again just showed, and you just proved my point. You saw an article, likely posted on Twitter. This is why you were able to find it. And based on that, you were like, oh, guess what? There's an invasion. And so when I ask you the question, what percentage of Muslims are in London, you're unable to answer it because you're uneducated, you haven't done the research, you're illiterate, and this is the problem with someone like you. Like, you need, if this is, and what makes it worse is this is your whole goddamn show. Like, if something was my whole goddamn show, which is, you know, mass migration or racial, ethnocentric ideology, I would make sure I'm literally an expert on it. I wouldn't be like,
Well, I'm
Muhammad is
glad
the
you're a
biggest
fan of
name
it,
without
my
doing the
show,
research. I'd be like,
Suleiman.
I'm gonna mention London, but I'm not from there. That's so dumb. Like, surely you can't be this low IQ. Surely you understand that one needs to do the research.
Is it 15%? Is it around 15%
Yeah, you just
of
You know,
Google
Muslims?
it. Well
you know
done.
the funniest thing, yeah. He's complaining that the Jews control him, and yet he's repeating Zionist propaganda in order to perpetuate Zionist mission. It's
Golden.
so
You're the
funny.
one
Yes.
repeating
And you know the
Zionist
irony is he's
propaganda
such a
that
fraud.
we'd have no borders and
Rush,
only
Rush,
Western
you're such a
nations have to
fraud.
accept the
He's
world.
such a fraud. So when I asked him what percentage is it, he said he didn't know. And then he Googled it, and rather than being an honest individual, which he's not, and said, oh, look, I just checked and it's 15%. Is it 15%? Making it look like he knew and he forgot, where I'd already exposed the fact that he didn't know. This is the level of dishonesty, the level of basically manipulation that occurs, and this shows what type of individual you are, because you could have been honest about it and said, look,
So what percentage does England no longer
And by
become
the way,
England?
no, but
why are
you
you
agree that
so
you basically
so
are a
What
lie.
controlled?
percentage
You
does
agree
England
that
no
you
longer
lie.
become England?
Why are
When we
you
bring
so controlled
1.2
by
billion
Zionists? Like, why can't
Indians
you do some critical
England?
thinking? Like, you're complaining that Zionists
You are the
control
one
you, and yet
pushing
you're
the
repeating
Zionist
Zionist
talking points,
propaganda.
Simon. You're the one pushing the Zionist talking points that Westerners have no homeland and anyone can come invade Western nations, all while that invasion's not happening anywhere else. How many?
When did I say
How many?
Westerners have no homeland? I said Europeans did ethnic cleansing and genocide in order to create the United States of America. That happened. Are you saying it didn't happen?
No, we didn't give them reservations.
Hold on, no, they were on the land,
So
and you were and with the Europeans were the invaders. Are you saying that didn't
so
happen?
they had autonomy over the entire land. They had a nation. They had a name for their nation and had autonomy over their entire land.
I'm
While they were
saying,
going
just
around
like you're
scalping and
repeating,
murdering innocent families
Zionist
of
talking points
settlers
here.
that were
Just
expanding to
like,
the west.
just like, just like
There were
Israel,
there was no families. There were no
just like
families of
Israel, there
veteran
were
children
some,
that were murdered by
just
savage
like,
Redskins.
just like Israel, there were people on the
Using
land,
Israeli
and
talking points.
European invaders settled on the land and killed them. Are you saying that didn't happen?
No, it was a war. They fought a war.
What
They were
war? What war?
the Indian nations were
So there
killing
were
and
people.
raiding
Is you sound like a Zionist?
Western
Is that what
settlements.
happened to the Palestinians? Is that what
No,
happened to the
the
Palestinians?
Palestinians were the Israelis used the British and the rest of Europe, and along with working with the Muslims, to let them in and have the Balfour Declaration and establish the state of
Okay,
Israel.
so
The Muslims
Israel was all
worked
good,
just as
right?
hard on
So you
that
are a
as the
Zionist, and now
Europeans
that
did.
explains a lot. So you are a Zionist.
Well,
You're a
Muslims are
Zionist, but you're
Zionists.
you're a Zionist, but you're
Fans are
complaining.
Zionists. No, I'm against Zionism.
No,
I'm
you
against
just
what
said that
Israel.
they were
I'm
welcome
against
to
what
the
Israel's
land,
doing
and
to
it was
Palestine.
they
They
were
have a home in
welcomed, and it was
Siberia.
all good.
You can't
And you're
help but
saying
do
that
anything, Simon.
you are very confused, my friend. Like you're a Zionist, and yet you're complaining that you're controlled by Jews.
I'm not a Zionist.
Then why
have
are you
complete
repeating
opposite view
Zionist
of Zionism. Why
propaganda
can you not allow
in
me to
both?
speak? You
Why are
let
you
the
talking?
pause,
Why are
and
you
then the
repeating
second as I
Zionist
said something, you
propaganda
immediately interrupted me again. That is not having a discussion. That's Simon sitting on his soapbox echo chamber. Okay, can we have a discussion here? I'm against Zionism. I advocate against Zionism.
Bro, you've been talking for 30 minutes. What are you talking about? You just repeat
I'm
yourself. Let
interrupted
someone
every
else
5
speak.
seconds. I'm interrupted every 5 seconds. You guys are afraid of letting me speak. You're afraid of hearing my viewpoints.
I'm really afraid. This guy's got such good points. It's really scary.
He's
Yeah, I mean,
he's too smart.
Well, if you guys will let me speak, I can actually
Yeah,
say
just make sure
something.
you got
So
Google open while you're doing it. Go ahead.
no, I mean, so
Can you stop
you
being a conspiracy
I
mom though?
used
Like I'm tired of the
you can let
conspiracy
me speak,
mom.
can you? This is
I'm
embarrassing. This is
tired of the
embarrassing.
conspiracy
So
mom talking points.
so
Can you
I
go on to
used
something else?
I used the name of Muhammad just to emphasize that there's a mass invasion into the UK. I didn't want to specify any specific country because they are being invaded by the world, just like America is being invaded by the world. We have 14% of Haiti's population. We have 30% of Guatemala's population in our country that we've brought into our country over
What
the
did
last
you
few
do
years.
to
We
those
have double digit
countries?
in
Rush,
El
Rush,
Salvador
can I ask
and
you a
Rush,
question?
did you do
Guatemala.
anything to
We
those
didn't do
countries?
anything to
Rush,
those
can I ask you a
countries.
question? Rush, can
All
I
this
ask you a question?
victimhood of colonization, you're pushing the Zionist agenda,
Rush,
and
can I ask you a
it's
question?
shameful you guys can't let me speak.
Rush, can I
But
ask you a
please,
question?
yes, please, Solomon.
What percentage
Solomon.
of basically what's the white population percentage in the? You mentioned the UK, so I'm just reiterating what you said. What's the white population percentage in the UK?
I'm not from the UK, but I think it's somewhere around 68%. In the United States, it's 56%. And
True.
60 years ago, when we wrote the Hart-Celler Act and they told us it would never change the
Rush, you keep
demographics
saying
of our
that people.
country, it
Rush,
was 90%.
true.
Within 60 years, we've dropped from
True.
90% to
True.
56%.
Okay, Rush. So you say no one's letting you speak, but the reason is because when I asked you a question, you answered the
I
question.
answered it
I know you
accurately. I
did. I know.
answered immediately, but I'm an
You,
American. I don't know UK
yeah,
statistics as
I know,
accurately
but
as
then
I
you
know
keep
American
mentioning.
statistics.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Look, Rush, I've not interrupted you. You actually keep interrupting me. You will, if anyone wants to listen back, I ask you a question, you answer it, then you answer, say 10 more things, and then when I say, okay, Rush, can I, and then and you speak again. So up to now, you've been interrupting me a lot, even though I'm the host, which is fine. But well, it's not fine, but anyway. So the reason I asked the question to you is it's not actually 68%. It's basically because I asked for white, which is it's 75%. According to some figures, I think it's 80%. So it's anyways between 75 to 80%.
Yeah, and Arabs count as white in
Arabs
that
don't.
racial demographic.
Arabs
How
don't.
many
Arabs
people from
don't
the
count as
how
white.
many UK
Arabs do not count. This is just you're making stuff
UK
up.
citizens are in the British? That was my answer.
Okay, so you're making stuff up, Rush. Arabs do not count as white in the UK.
Yes, they do. In
So
the
they
United
do
States
not.
statistics, they do. I don't know if they're different in the
Again,
UK,
but
but in US
once
statistics,
again, Rush,
Arabs count as white.
you've just done it again, where you said I don't know about the UK. So what you do is this is your problem, Rush. I'll tell you what you do. You just
I'm telling you
again you
what I
interrupted
know
me. You
factually, and I'm
interrupted
telling you
me
what I
again.
don't know
No,
factually.
but then the problem is you keep making statements about the UK, and then whenever I pull you up and say, okay, you made X statement, this is actually false. You're like, I don't know about the UK. So what again I say to you, Rush, is research it, so therefore, or don't mention it. For example, I'd be very accurate in that I don't mention things I don't know. So if people ask me a follow-up question about it, I'm not embarrassed. So for example, I won't be like, guess what? Muhammad's the most popular name, and then when I ask you a percentage you don't know, and you have to Google on the space, and people are actually listening to you Google because initially you say you don't know, and then you Google it and then check and then you reply. Or for example, when I ask you what's the percentage you don't know, or for example, and then you say I don't know. So all I'm saying is just do some research and just educate yourself on it. But I
You
already
expect
helped
me
you.
to know
But
every Western civilization country's
well, I
population
think you need to
statistic
know
off the
about
top
any
of my
country that
head?
you make a
I
claim
know my
about.
country. I know
No,
America.
but
I want to talk
no
about
one's asking
America.
Rush.
You
No
guys are
one's
pushing me
asking you
towards
to
the
know
UK.
every single country. What I'm asking you is when you make a claim, make sure you know it. So you didn't mention Estonia, so I didn't ask you about Estonia. You mentioned the UK. This is basic logic. Like you don't mention something you don't know the information about. So what you're saying is, I want to mention something, and then when I ask you about it, you're like, oh, but I'm ignorant of it. But don't mention it. The only reason I asked you UK is because you mentioned it. If you didn't mention it, I wouldn't ask you. It just shows your lack of education and your lack of ignorance. And so all I'm saying is research it. And I actually helped you out because I said to you, listen, Rush, I actually agree with you that if you look at it, there's been a huge amount of migration into the UK. So I was actually helping you out. But because you didn't have the ability to listen and the ability to understand, you didn't understand my point. So I already gave you the evidence. So if you actually just regurgitated back what I said, you would have said, well, Suleiman, you actually said this. And I would have said, yes, I did. So there is mass migration into the UK. This is no doubt. And it's happened a lot. It's accelerated, especially over the last 5 years. But as I mentioned, the mass migration into the UK, where I disagree is, and this is why I've debated many people on this and destroyed them. Tommy Robinson is running from me. He agreed to many debates and is running from me. He was in Miami. He agreed to a debate. Fresh and Fit. He was with Fresh. Fresh messaged me. They've created a group. We were meant to have a debate. He ran away. It's because he knows that I know the stats. So in the last 5 years, and because he supports this migration, in the last 5 years, there has been over the last 20 years, But over the last 5 years, because it's been basically it's not even been an upward curve, it's been like massive escalation, is that there has been a huge amount of Indian migration, 1 million. There's been 350,000 Chinese, as I said. There's been 330,000 Nigerian. When I said that, you did the laughing emoji. But if you actually listened, rather than play around with the mic and put the laughing emoji, you would have understood that actually, yes, Suleiman, that means, wow, 1.7 million people just from those three demographics have come to a country of 60, 70 million people. And you said, actually, yeah, there is mass migration. But the problem was when I was saying that, because you were messing around with the laughing emoji, you actually didn't even hear what I said, which actually supported your argument. It just disagrees with you in terms of there being a mass migration of Muslims. Actually, in the UK, Muslims have been attacked quite a bit. You look at it, for example, the Muslims or anyone who supports Muslims or anyone who supports Palestine are being arrested in huge numbers. All of these things are happening in the UK. You saw a doctor that I had on the other day. She was arrested for speaking about the Holocaust. Like, in reality, there's mass attacks on anyone who's against Israel in the UK. There is mass migration, but it definitely isn't from Muslim countries. Is there a decent amount of Muslims in the country? Of course there is, because from the 1960s, like, people came from Pakistan. For example, my grandparents came from Pakistan in the early 1960s. So there was migration of Muslims, but over the last 20 years, which is what you're talking about in terms of the mass migration, in terms of the huge shift in demographics, largely speaking, especially over the last 5 years, that hasn't been Muslim. That was the only point I would make. I just want to go to Prashant because
well, if I could clarify it, not one
okay.
time did I say Muslims. I said the word, the name Muhammad, and it triggered you guys because
No, it didn't trigger
you're
me.
coming at this from a Muslim
No, but you said
perspective.
triggered again.
I'm coming at this
Rush,
from
being
an
it didn't
American
trigger me.
disingenuous.
perspective.
We all
Rush,
know what you meant when you said Muhammad.
I said
Don't
Muhammad.
give
I
us
said
that
the England has
bullshit.
been
We're not
invaded,
we're not
and then I
stupid.
labeled their name.
We're
I
not
just used it as
stupid.
an
You
example.
know what you meant. Stop lying.
I didn't know what I meant. You're putting
You
words in my
know that
mouth.
when you said Muhammad,
You're
you were
putting words
referring
in my mouth. You
to
didn't know what I meant.
to Muslims.
You're putting
You know
words in
you
my
were.
mouth, Simon.
Stop being
You
an
can't
idiot.
help yourself. You can't help yourself,
Be
Simon.
genuine.
I
Be
said
genuine.
Muhammad. I
Yes,
said
but why did you
Muhammad.
say that? We
And
know what it means.
you guys
I think
all got
we'll.
triggered because
No,
you're a
Simon,
Muslim
Rush.
sympathizer
No one,
space.
Rush. No one got triggered. No one's triggered. If we were triggered, I wouldn't even let you on the space. Like, you derailed the space. It was about Iran, and you made it about something totally different. So in reality, no one got triggered. If you were triggered, I would just throw you off the space. I assure you, it's easy for me to have a panel. I have the biggest audience on X for a reason. And nobody was triggered, so this is untrue. What you're upset about is the fact that you made a claim, that claim was debunked, and because it was debunked, now you're upset about it, and you're a bit shocked, and you shook it, and you said, I don't know anything about the UK, which is fine. But I want to bring
What
Prashant
claim
in.
did I make that was debunked? Because I didn't make
I
any
just gave
claim about
you.
Muslims being the
Okay,
largest ethnic
I
invasion
just
into
gave you a few
Europe.
examples. Okay,
I never made that claim.
Okay, cool. I'll let the audience just listen. They listened to the conversation. They heard you get debunked. It is what it is. I want to go to Prashant because I am going to be wrapping up in a few bit. Go ahead, Prashant.
Thank you, Suleiman.
That's a straw man argument. That's funny.
That's not straw man. I gave you an example. So you don't know what straw man means. You made the.
Oh my God, did he just drop?
I don't know.
Yeah,
You
did a
made-
party. He did a
that's not
parting
straw man.
shot like and ran.
Yeah, he doesn't know what straw man means. So straw man is when you reduce someone's argument into character or what it is. I'm just making it easy for people to understand. No, I didn't. He made an argument. He made a claim. Simon's right. He said Muhammad's the most common used name. The base of that claim was to make it sound like there's a huge amount of Muslims or there's a mass migration of Muslims. And when he was debunked on that, he said, I don't know anything about this. When he was asked the percentage, he said, I'm ignorant of this. When he was asked the percentage of basically how many white people there are in the UK, he was ignorant of this. And that's fine. But if this is your whole goddamn show and you're going to talk about specifically a country because he mentioned it, at least make sure you're educated on it. But go ahead, Prashant.
Oh, he's requesting again. And actually, Suleiman, when you asked him, what do you infer? What is I can't remember the word you used, but what are you taking from that? What are you trying to infer? Is it that Muslims have invaded? Is it that they're giving birth more because of the name Muhammad? And he said, yeah, like there's basically an invasion of Muslims. He
No,
actually
I
went
didn't say
further
that.
to
I
say
didn't
that.
say that. You're saying he basically
And
said that. I didn't say that,
Rush,
though.
I'm speaking. Don't
I'm
interrupt
not
me.
I said I was
Because that's literally what you said. And somebody on our YouTube chat is saying, which I think is hilarious, they're like Rush tacoed. I love that. So funny. I've seen some of your tweets, Rush. Listen, let me tell you something, Rush, right? Where people, we do have an immigration issue. Personally, this is my opinion, okay, in the UK. And I do believe that from all the Americans I've spoken to, they're really concerned about it. And I believe people in Europe are, okay? But we see why it's happening. We don't, personally, I see that the flood of immigrants that are coming in from India, our government's made it legal. They come here, they take the British jobs. I mean, you think it's bad in America? It's been far worse. We've had it for a number of years. Fast track, easy visas for people from India, no background checks, zero background checks. That's an issue. But the reason that the media doesn't focus on that is because they've categorized that legal. And then you'll get 10 people coming from a war-torn country, a country that we have spent our tax dollars bombing and destroying, and the media is going to focus on that to make it Islamophobic. So I think migration overall is an issue. I don't categorize it between believing my government's categorization of what's legal and illegal. I believe that we should bring in people that can help build this country, do background checks on them. Anyway, that's a separate issue. My problem is that generally on this space, we believe that everybody's equal in terms of whatever country you're from, whatever color you are, whatever religion you are. You will never hear anybody talk about in a derogatory way about Judaism, about Christianity, about Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, on our space. We have respect. Obviously, I'm a Muslim myself and I am British born, right? I'm not an immigrant, but it doesn't matter because do you know what? I'm no more important than an immigrant in this country because we're equal human beings. It's just that I was blessed to have been born in this country and that immigrants had to work to come to this country, but we're both equal human beings. So we believe in equality. So then going further than that, when I see some of your posts about, there's a cure for AIDS, but there's no cure for Islam and stuff,
I've
I
never
find it
said
really
that.
troubling.
Show me that post. I've never said that. That's
Okay, let me put it, let me see if I can send it to somebody who can. Oh, Jonah, could you put it in that nest for me, please? Could you put that in the nest?
Okay,
Because I
cool.
can't put it in the nest.
Guys, it is the hard ending at one. So unfortunately, Rush, you can come back tomorrow. Maybe
Well, no,
do-
you guys said I was running away. I knew you were
I didn't
trying to
say-
shut the space down, so I was leaving.
Yeah,
You
no
were running
problem.
away, and then you used your straw man argument again.
No,
And
so
it
I
is a
didn't do
straw
it-
man argument to
What's the-
focus on a single point when I said
the
the
straw man?
issue is mass invasion into England, and then I made the point of a boy's name being a foreign name that's obtuse to England, and you guys focused in on the boy's name being Muslim, and you thought
Stop
that I
being
had an issue with the
disingenuous.
Muslims.
Everyone
I have
knows
an
what you were
issue.
doing.
Okay, you just
Stop
came
being.
you just came to repeat his point. The whole point is you made a number of arguments. Those arguments were debunked. You had a very weak points.
Not a single argument was debunked.
Every
Not a
single
single.
one of your arguments was debunked. When I asked you about Muhammad, you didn't even know what the percentages of the birth rate was in the UK. Your response to that was, I am ignorant of the UK. Then I asked you about percentages of how many in London, how many Muslims there were. You said, I am ignorant of that. Then I asked you what percentage of white people there are in the UK. You said, I am ignorant of that. I don't know about the UK, even though you continue to mention it. So yeah, you just demonstrated your ignorance. Now you can come back tomorrow because we are going to be back tomorrow for the space, but I do need to end the space. There is and I didn't even put it in the nest, 1 second. Guys, and
Oh, we lost you, Suleiman.
yeah, guys, we are wrapping up. So there is a tweet in the nest. I'm about to put it in the nest. It is the interview with Harrison Smith from InfoWars. Obviously, I disagree with Alex Jones a lot. But anyway, in the interest of giving or hearing people from different ideas and opinions, we did have Harrison Smith on from InfoWars to give his opinion on the Iran war. He feels like Trump betrayed them. So I'm going to put it in the YouTube comments now. So come across there. It's in the nest, everyone. Come across there. Really spicy space today, and it wasn't even about the topic, but once this guy came up, it was about it. But anyway, that being said, much love. I really apologize to Andy and Prashant because they didn't get a chance to speak. I know Andrew turned up just a bit of time ago. But come back tomorrow. I'll definitely make sure you're able to speak. I really apologize. It's just I put this video out and I forgot to reschedule it, and it's like I want to was there. So I'm going to be there where the video is. The tweet's in the nest. The tweet is in the YouTube comments. Everyone come across. And yeah, we'll see you guys there. Much love. We'll be back tomorrow, normal time. So tomorrow we've got a few great interviews lined up. We've got an Iranian professor, Professor Siddiqui. We've got Rex Jones, Alex Jones' son. And again, I disagree with Alex Jones a lot. But we've got his son on who, when I've interacted with him, his views seem to be exactly like ours. And also we've got Larry Johnson on, so it should be really good. So we'll be back tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, as per what we normally do. So 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Much love to each and every single. Apologies that I was rushing so much. I didn't expect the space to be so spicy. If it was, I would have scheduled the video so much later. Anyway, much love to everyone. Appreciate you guys joining in.